circle from all that's stressed. We trust the guardians, trust the guides, trust the open and what's inside. When the moon is high, it's time to fly. Open your mind, let it all unwind. Let's get disengaged, time to engage. Turn another page, free from your cage. Get disenraged. When you feel like you've had enough and the week was busy and tough, you need a break, you need some fun. You need to take time from the run. We'll blow your mind. We're just in time. Seek and ye shall find. Time to unwind. Let's get disenraged. Time to engage. Turn another page. Free from your cage. Get disenraged. Aliens, ghosts, spirits in the shadows, spirituality, ultra reality, the Bible, the pagans, all the conspiracies, tarot, astrology, and alternate history. Open your heart to other possibilities and get disenraged. Time to engage. Turn another page, free from your cage. Get disenraged, 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 disenraged.
What's up, guys? I told you, Jennifer and I told you we were going to do the show. Everyone's fucking freaking out in the chat because we're late.
Are they? I wasn't even looking.
Well, I don't know.
What's happening?
Yeah, like I'm late. It must be a day that ends in Y.
I know, right? Well, that's why, we're either both on time or both late, and I think that happens here and on movie night.
Yeah. So Jennifer,
or both early, which was weird last Tuesday or last Sunday.
I have really horrible news, and I'm not happy about it, and I'm gonna complain. Okay, this is really horrible news.
Get it off your chest. I'm listening.
I accidentally lost weight, like 15 pounds in the last month without trying to.
How dare you?
It was an accident. I didn't fucking mean to do it. I didn't even realize it until I weighed myself today. Cause I was like starting this new nutrition thing, and I was wondering if the nutrition thing was gonna have any impact. So I was like, I probably should weigh myself. And the last time I weighed myself was like a month ago, and I lost 15 fucking pounds like by accident.
I am
and
so
it's really horrible, and it's really fucking awful. And I knew something happened like that. Do you want to know why? Because I've been extra sensitive lately, and one of the reasons I've really been rebelling against the idea of losing weight is I get much more fucking psychic the more weight that I lose and the cleaner diet I have. Just because it makes sense, right? Like the weight is padding, whatever. I get much more psychic. I get much more intuitive. I feel things much more. And I was thinking about it like yesterday because I had my cry moment on stream yesterday, and I was like, Karlyn, why the fuck are you so fucking sensitive right now? Like what has happened? What has happened? I fucking lost weight. That's what happened. And I'm not happy about it. And I don't want to, because the internet makes fun of me all the time for my weight. And so that inherently makes me not want to lose fucking weight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm very disappointed. What are you doing with yourself these days?
I don't know how the fuck I lost 15 pounds in a month without trying to lose weight. Like, I don't know how this... No, you know how it happens is because I was traveling and I was running around. Sorry, you're frozen. Okay.
I'm back. I'm back.
I was traveling, I was running around, I was on my feet all day. I've been more active lately, and
Mhm.
apparently that's all that's required, really.
Oh, you mean like movement? Oh
Movement.
shit.
Yeah. I actually had to get my ass out of the office chair that I sit in all the time. Yeah.
I lost about 10 pounds recently because I have quit drinking so much liquor.
That'll do it.
And I've been trying to actually, actually the stress and movement, all the stuff we've been doing with the house. I'm about to paint these walls.
I love those walls. I know why you have to paint them, but like it sucks.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, we had to take our house off the market because the holidays are coming up, and I'm realizing there's lots of little things that could use a zhuzh just to
Mhm.
make this house feel like, yes, it is the dollar value. And unfortunately, people are so picky right now because the market is a buyer's market, and these buyers are bitches. Let me tell you, these
Wow.
people are insane about the stuff. They'd like one thing. One lady was like, "This house is gorgeous. I love everything about it." She walked outside and went, I can really hear the highway from here. No, not interested. And I'm like, you don't always hear the highway. You could go walk into the living room. You don't hear a fucking thing. It has to be dead silent outside. And you have to be standing on the porch with the wind blowing your direction to hear the high. Oh, fine.
I'm
That's
sorry.
fine. I, that's just so,
Now
well,
leave it up to the universe. Nothing you can do about it.
you know what? I understand. I'm not going to say the reason, but I now know the reason this happened. I know why this worked out the way it did. I'm okay with it. And it is now time for us to finish our little touches. I don't know what color to do. Probably just something whitish, I'm guessing, because that's just nice and neutral and people like it. And yeah, so we're doing that. We got a few other things we need to just, give a little kiss and a hug here and there. Make it nice. And I'm sure that will, help me lose a little bit more because it's amazing what happens when you don't drink so much and you actually stand up occasionally.
I'm really upset about this though, because like
Why?
this whole well, first of all, I wasn't trying to lose weight and I just lost weight, and that makes me feel like I'm out of control in this situation.
No,
And
that's
again, I'm
wonderful.
rebelling against the fucking internet telling me I need to lose weight all the time, and I'm like, no, fuck you. No, I don't want to. No.
Oh,
And then
no,
all of
because
a
now it's
sudden I
gonna be
lose
like,
weight.
"Oh, she lost weight because we gave her so much shade," and they're gonna, like,
Yeah,
make a thing
because
out of
I
it.
don't wanna give that impression either. I don't want anyone to think I made any effort at this. I made 0 effort at this. I was just walking around more than normal. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Man, it's not cool. It's not cool. And and the whole sensitivity thing I'm gonna talk about in a second. But I do wanna point out,
Oh, no!
and we didn't even come up with anything good and sexual to talk about. Like, that was
I
a fucking fail on our part. Jennifer is frozen again.
th sorry, I know you freeze for me and I freeze for you.
Oh.
I think you know what? And Naturo actually told me that was coming up, and I should have paid better attention because I said we'll have to do something special. Maybe I should look for a quick video about
No,
like
no,
the
we're doing
origin of
Amalek's
geishas
gonna come
or
on. I
oh, he
already told
is?
him we're gonna do Zoroastrianism. Yes.
Well, okay, well maybe he wants to see the origin of geishas. I mean, who knows? You never know.
Well, maybe if he does. Maybe he does. Julie, thank you for upgrading your channel membership. I appreciate it. Where do pirates get their hooks? Secondhand stores. Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice.
Oh boy.
So I had a breakdown on stream yesterday because of
Yeah.
my increased sensitivity, which
Yeah.
I'm really unhappy about. And the thing of it is I don't regret this because the internet fucking sucks. The
It
internet
does.
sucks, and I'm tired of being told that I can't have feelings on the internet, and I'm definitely tired of being told that I can't take care of that I'm responsible for taking care of other people's feelings while simultaneously
You are
not
not.
being able to have feelings of my own.
Yeah, whatever.
It sucks. And so I don't even know what to say about that really. I know people came and told you that I was like having a tough time of it or whatever, and you were concerned.
I popped in because and I was in the middle of doing things and I wasn't able to engage and I felt really bad because I love being supportive and but I just kind of popped it on for a little between I had massive shit I was doing yesterday, but I popped in. I'm like, okay, let me take 20 minutes and just be there. So I just energetically was present and was listening. And I just thought, I get it. I get it because you can only, all of us have our breaking points. We can only take so much pile on before we just go crush. And one thing that I think a lot of us admire about how you handle it, especially when you're just unafraid to get up here and do the thing, and that's that's your prerogative, but you don't shy away from it. You show everybody how it's okay to be a human being. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. And I guarantee to you that all those people that make fun of you aren't acting like real human beings. They're not being authentic. They're not, obviously they're not being sincere. They're being a bunch of little pissant jerkheads and hiding behind little pictures that aren't even them, not putting their real face forward like you do every fucking day, not putting their real boots on the ground like you do every fucking day, and not contributing anything of value to this world like you do every fucking day. So fuck those guys. Fuck those guys. I'm sorry. I'm so tired of them. I'm sick of their petty. I can't even I can't even swear. I'm so mad. So, and it makes me mad that they upset you because you're my friend, and I don't like seeing my friends upset. So that just really angers me. But also keep in mind, these people have nothing better to do than pick on someone else, and they suck, and they're stupid, and they're useless and worthless. And you know what? Just as you go through and you just ban them, get rid of those assholes and keep going, because what you've always done, for one thing, be true to yourself. You've always done that. And number two, you're showing us it's okay to be vulnerable, which I love and admire. And it has helped me learn how to do that too. And number three, you are keeping the people near you that want to be here, who are useful, supportive, and love you, and are going to stick by you. That's important for all of us to know. You keep your friends, you cultivate your friend groups, and if no one can recognize your glory, and I'm not the general you, not just Karlyn, but all of us, if someone doesn't recognize your talents, your contributions, how valuable you are, off they go. Bye. See ya. Don't let the door hit ya. Fucking see ya. I mean, that is I'm learning that with some friends I've had where they're like, oh, I just can't blah, 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 this, that, or the other thing anymore. Or you did this one thing after 30 years of friendship that pissed me off, and now I can't stand the side of you. It's like, you know what? I've been putting up with your bullshit this whole time, and I do one thing. Are you fucking kidding me? You can, okay, you don't deserve me. Those people don't deserve you. They don't deserve you or you or you or you. They don't deserve any of us. Walk away, pull up your big girl panties, have a good fucking cry, maybe a couple of shots or a dupe, whatever you need, and march on. So there's my soapbox moment.
You know, I mean, it's just like the thing that really bothers me the most is I'm just so tired of hearing it. It's like, can we please have a conversation about something that actually matters? Because, like, and this has been true of my work for years and years and years, is it's like, it's never acknowledged. It's never acknowledged the extent that I go to do what I do, the amount of this content that I make, the amount of things that I've talked about that literally no one else has ever talked about, the amount of times I am years ahead of everyone else. And it's like, did you see this, Jennifer? Libs of TikTok just reported on something as breaking news that I literally reported on in September of 2022. Exactly the same thing. Literally no new updates. Exactly the same thing. And I'm like, I am years ahead of you, retard. You have millions of dollars. You have all these fucking people helping you. I just have me and a team of volunteers and like a fucking obsession with the far left. And that's the other thing too, is like, I get told I'm obsessed with this person. I'm obsessed with that person. I'm obsessed with you. I'm obsessed. Like, everyone and their mother thinks I'm obsessed with them. No one ever accuses me of being obsessed with the left.
I know, right? The literal purpose of everything you do. Okay, yeah, and
it's you, but it's you I'm obsessed with, internet. Okay,
internet people, yeah. You know, if you need to go off on somebody, go off on somebody. You know, if that's what needs to happen, so you can off gas it, fucking go. But that,
like, I am an Aries motherfucker. Like,
exactly. Exactly. But then you always circle back, move on. But you have to. The one thing that is good about letting it out is you're not holding it in, because that makes you sick, and not just physically ill, but it makes you mentally ill, it makes you emotionally ill, it makes you energetically ill. So
people
don't hold
who
on
repress
to
their feelings. They fuck themselves up.
True.
And it manifests in weird ways too. Sometimes it manifests in weird sexual ways. Sometimes it manifests in like weird habits. Sometimes
Abuse.
It's just like, you become like a fucking hermit, and you can never like, you remain stuck your entire life because the feelings that you repress just totally weigh you down. It's like I don't want anything to do with that. That's way too much work.
Yeah, you can't let go if you keep holding on. And the thing is what later in life you start manifesting diseases that reflect that you can't let things go.
Right.
And it is true. It is true, with love, but it is true. So those people are insignificant, and let them go be important in their little circle. I'm just good riddance.
I did have to lay down some new rules in the class though, because
Do
I was
tell.
like, okay, we are going to be speaking like adults in this class, and you all are going to learn how to ask a question. You're going to learn the difference between making a statement based on your preconceived notions, most of which are wrong, and asking a fucking question. And so I reprimanded like 6 or 7 people. I was like, rephrase the fucking question, put it in the form of a fucking question. We are like, it's just like,
Yeah.
you really do have to like retrain people on how to do this though, because people online are so used to just being able to shitpost and to
Yeah.
have that be like the currency that they literally have to like, they don't know how to ask questions.
Well, they're more used to asserting what they think they know instead of being ready to receive. And like you said, ask the question and putting themselves in a position to be taught. They come from a position of, well, I heard this and I know this is thing, and isn't it this and isn't it that? Why don't you turn it into a question and say, is it this instead of
Yeah.
isn't it this?
Yeah.
Very
Or
simple.
what is this about? Like, instead of saying, this is bullshit and it's stupid, it's like, okay, what is this about? What is this actually going on? It's
Yeah.
like not
Thank
that
you
hard.
for proving that you get all your news from NPR, you dumbass.
Yep. Hey, I've got actually I've got a quick story I want to make sure I tell you, because I was going to tell this on stream earlier and I forgot. The
Oh,
weirdest fucking thing happened to me that I think you will appreciate, because like I this is a manifestation. This is the universe like winking and saying, "Yes, I actually do exist. Stop
yeah.
doubting. I like
I
you
am
are manifest."
listening.
So the other so I've been spending a little bit too much time in the land of whatnot lately. And I don't and whatnot is fucking dangerous, because you just start swiping on random shit that you don't really need, because it's like you're like, oh, that's like $4 for a knife set. I could
Oh,
really use a new knife set. You swipe and then you accidentally win the fucking auction.
okay, yep. Then you got a skincare thing that you told me about.
I
And you,
did.
what
I
was
got a
it? Was it
skincare. I got a whole bunch of skincare. I have more skincare than I ever need in my life. And it's actually doing really good things for my skin, so I'm pretty
mm,
excited about that. And I got all sorts of like lotions and creams and serums. I like the serums the best, like they
yeah.
feel the nicest. And then you put the cream over the serum and all that stuff. So that's good. But the thing that I've been doing is there's been some auctions lately where it's just like these guys like, and Trendlin, this is your fucking fault. This isn't I hadn't even fucking thought about whatnot until I went to Trendlin's house, and Trendlin kept getting fucking boxes from whatnot of just like random shit. And I was like, I had heard of whatnot, but I had never tried it out. I was like, what the fuck is Trendlin doing? And then I get on there and I just start buying a whole bunch of random shit.
Be very
My mail
careful
lady started
following a Trendlin trend.
Oh man, my mail lady's starting to get mad at me, because my mail lady's like, you're getting a lot of packages, and I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it.
It's a free country. Don't worry about my
But
packages.
so there's this like, there's a whole bunch of like younger guys on there that they basically just like buy this overstock stuff from Amazon, and they get these giant carts of all this random shit, and then they just go through it and they auction it like one by one, right? It's like random stuff like a dash cam or a curling iron or some sort of like thing for the car, or some sort of boy thing like a knife or something. It's like all sorts of random shit in one. So I've been buying some just random shit out of that, because I'm kind of, don't tell Victor. One of Victor's Christmas presents is going to be a whole bunch of random shit off of whatnot that I just thought was funny to buy. And he has
Nice.
no idea. It's a whole bunch. It's like a mishmash. So I've been buying like a lot of just like random shit, right?
Not a
And
Millennium Falcon coffee table.
yeah, it's like stuff like that. It's like there's like a boxing machine that you can play your Spotify through or some such shit. There's like like random like stuff you would never think to buy. But like but I do keep a list in my head of like things that I buy. Like I know what I'm getting, right? And so I got this package from the whatnot people the other day, and it had a whole bunch of my random shit that I had been buying, except that I actually only bought one of the things they put in the package. And then it was like they made a mistake when they were packing it or something like that, right? And
Uh-oh.
so but the funny thing is one of the things they sent me is a pair of glasses that you wear and you can record video with the glasses. And I shit you not, Jennifer, earlier in the day yesterday, I was like, maybe I should get a pair of those glasses that you record video with. And I
Oh,
spent like half
funny.
an hour on Amazon looking at all these glasses and comparing all the different specs for these glasses and all this stuff, and like, which one should I get and which one can get here the fastest, and blah, 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 blah. And I went through a whole fucking existential crisis looking at these glasses. And then like the ones I wanted, they couldn't get here by like, Friday or whatever. And so I was like, like whatever. And I was like, I'm going to come back to this later, and I'm going to deal with this whole glasses question later. 2 hours later, I get this package from Whatnot that randomly has in it a pair of glasses that records video that I did not order in any way, and it just shows up on my fucking doorstep.
Here you go. These are the ones.
Yeah, this is what you were looking for.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Isn't that funny? I was like, great. I am manifesting, and it is great.
Out of
it is
thin
glorious.
air now. Out of thin air.
Yeah, literally, just thinking about having a glasses, and the universe is like, oh, I know what you need.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Man, Murphy's Pool said, my wife kissed me after eating a booger. You might think it's funny, but it's not. Yeah. Thanks, Murphy's Pool. Appreciate that. Appreciate it. All right. Well, we are talking about Zoroastrianism tonight, and Amalek may join us. I did send him the link, so that would be fun if he joins us. But where the fuck is the video? Why can't I find the video, Jennifer?
I don't know. I can't see your stuff.
Hang on. Where the fuck is the fucking video? Oh, there it is. Found it. Found it. I apparently have too many tabs open. We made it. Okay. Why are we watching Zoroastrianism tonight? What brought us to this place?
Well, I'm a theme person. I love themes. And since we were doing the Jewish mysticism thing, and it would mention Zoroastrianism is one of the influences on the influence really to turn things into the doomsday, good versus evil, monotheistic versus the devil, that kind of thing. I thought, it makes sense that we learn about the origin of all of that from the thing itself. So why not?
Yeah.
Have a look and see what it'd do. And I think a lot of people are going to be a little spooked by how Christian this really is. In fact, it cracks me up. It starts off with a cross.
By Christian, you mean Jewish, right?
All the issues and
and speaking of Jewish, guess who's here? Almost here. Amalek, I can't add you. Amalek, add your camera or something. He's in the waiting room. He's in the StreamYard. I can't add him though. Here, there he is. Okay. Hey, Amalek, what's up?
Hey, Amalek.
How you guys doing?
Good. 3 weeks in a row. I feel so special.
Our new sometimes.
I'm just chilling. I usually don't have anything to do on like a Tuesday night, so it's fun. And this is the kind of stuff I watch too. I usually I'm just watching this stuff anyway, so it's fun to watch it together and pontificate. And Zoroastrianism is a good topic. It's a good one.
I'm really excited that you're able to join us, because Jennifer told me before the stream, I was like, oh, so Jennifer, we're learning about Jews tonight. And she was like, well, Karlyn, I previewed this entire video and they didn't actually talk about the Jewish stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I know who can come and explain the Jewish stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they omitted it. He talked about how it influenced Christianity and Islam, but not Judaism. And I don't know if it's because the host doesn't understand that, or the host just let it slide.
Which video is this? Because there was a video that I have in my watch later that was literally on.
What is Zoroastrianism?
Okay, this is a good one, but this isn't the one I was thinking of. Okay, this is a good one though. I've seen this.
Do you have a better suggestion?
No. This is a good one. We should watch this one.
Okay. Cool.
No, I'm just saying. There was a video that just popped up in my feed that I was gonna watch later, and it's talking about specifically the Zoroastrian influences in all of them, but specifically the Zoroastrian influences in the Old Testament Hebrew Bible, right? So it's to what degree you can sit here in this whole video, and I'm sure this guy's this one, I think he goes over, like you said, the Zoroastrian influence on Christianity and Islam, and specifically the end times ideas and the angels and the heavens, all that kind of stuff, right? That's really obvious, but what you really got to understand is that influence goes back even further to the baseline foundations, which is Judaism, specifically what I would call apocalypticism is born out of Zoroastrianism, as well as I wouldn't say like monotheism. Like maybe he'll say that in here, but I actually disagree with that. I think that was like a that's kind of like an obvious popular idea, and I don't think that the Jews that were like kind of basing their religion off of Zoroastrianism were themselves monotheistic. They were henotheistic. They were choosing God that chose them, kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. There's a ton of stuff about like the Zoroastrian influence on basically all the religions. I mean, even the the pagan cults of that were like contemporary with early Christianity, right? So something like Mithraism or stuff like that. That's obviously Zoroastrian influence as well, right? So you could just go through the entire like catalog of religions, and you'll see that almost all of them are influenced in a large way by Zoroastrianism.
Well, so and something always touches something else, doesn't it? So, like the story of Horus and the story of Mithras, and I think there was another one that it's all virgin births, so called. Well, I mean, Horus wasn't technically a virgin birth, but his father was not alive when he was conceived, so it was still a miraculous conception. So that kind of thing lends into the backstory of Jesus Christ when they had to. Oh well, he's the son of God because his mother was a virgin. Yeah, just like like that other guy, like so of course, so they're trying to validate what their belief system. I know this might be a little off topic with Zoroastrianism, but they're trying to validate their belief system, and everything influences something else. And that's one reason why I like being an omniist, but I love studying the connectivity, the connective tissue of everything, and it really puts things into perspective, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Basically, like what I like to do is I like to view it as kind of like an anatomy thing, where we're like looking at the anatomy of all religion, right? And we're just like analyzing the various body parts, and we're like looking at their function, what they did, how they developed. This body part came out of this thing, kind of like that kind of idea, right? And that's kind of how you look at these things. But I want to touch on something you just said that's kind of a fascinating thing that if anyone doesn't know in the audience, you have to know. So Christianity was basically like created by what I would call like Hellenized Jews. Okay. So what that means is they were like today's diaspora Jews, the type of Jews that don't live in Israel, but live all over like in America and the West and etc. Right. So, these types of Jews, a lot of them are like left wing, right? A lot of them are like Americanized, right? Fully
Maybe they don't keep
Americanized.
the Sabbath. Maybe they
Yeah.
just go to.
They don't. Yeah. But they know like the general stories, but not that well. They might know some Hebrew or whatever, but like nothing crazy. They would probably speak it poorly, right? That kind of stuff. Okay, that's the kind of people who made Christianity. Okay, and those people were, when I say Hellenized, I don't just mean like, oh, they spoke Greek. I mean they grew up in Greek, speaking Greek, and they grew up in like the Greek writing tradition. So they were extremely, extremely familiar with like the Homeric stories, as what I would say. Yeah, all that stuff, right? They were very, very familiar. So all those motifs, I would say, of like a virgin birth from like local pagan traditions, those
Yep.
people would have absolutely known about it. Okay.
Yep.
Now, this is the problem. They're going for that kind of what I would call like trope of the virgin birth, and they're going through, and because they're Hellenized Jews, they don't deal with the Hebrew Bible in Hebrew. They're not rabbis. They're not Orthodox, right? They're basically like I said, Hellenized Jews. So what they're doing is they go into the Septuagint, and the Septuagint, and basically what the Septuagint has in it is it's basically like they're working with a mistranslation, where they're reading Isaiah and reading into that and saying, oh, look, this was prophesied that the Messiah will be will be born of a virgin. So here, let me just explain this real quick. Let me just read this. This is the verse. So it says, so in Isaiah, hold on, let me get a better version. This is the King James. It's so hard to read. One second. Isaiah 7:14 NIV. One second. Sorry. All right, here we go. So it says, therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel, right? So that's in Isaiah. So that's the Old Testament. So what happens is Christians point to that verse and say, look, here, Jesus was prophesied. But the problem with this is first of all, Isaiah 7:14 isn't a prophecy. It's literally describing somebody something that literally happens later within the Isaiah story. That's the first problem. The second problem is this. The word that's being used there is not virgin. The word being used is Alma. in Hebrew. I obviously don't speak Hebrew, so it's pronounced different, but Alma, spelled Alma, Almah, and it refers to a young woman or a maiden. That is not a virgin. If it was a virgin, it would have said Betula, Betulah. So what we're
Oh,
dealing with here is the entire concept that Jesus is born of a virgin is done entirely off of a false premise of a poorly translated, basically like shitty Jew. Like, let's be honest, like just like a poorly educated Jew who is prioritizing what I would call like the Greek or like the pagan traditions of that local area and trying to incorporate that into, I mean, what later becomes Christianity, basically. So the
well,
whole thing is based on mistranslation.
well, and
And
that's
hold on, one
because
more thing.
go ahead.
And in the 1st and 2nd century, we have evidence of Jews writing and saying this directly to Jewish Christians, saying, "You're obviously he wasn't the Messiah, and obviously your story is fake and born of a virgin. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't say that in this Isaiah, saying exactly what I'm saying."
Yeah. When you have, especially words that can mean this or that, it's up to the interpreter to pick the right word. And in that, not necessarily will you. And I know that they had like, wasn't it like it was written in Hebrew, but wasn't it originally written in like Aramaic, like other
Yeah.
it wasn't even
Mhm.
Hebrew because yeah,
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
Aramaic, and then there were other cultures that had also verses that spoke different languages. You bring all that together, you put it in Greek, and they're sitting there going, maybe this word, maybe that word. Then the English come along and go, maybe this word, maybe that word, and now you've got a game of telephone. And before you know it, young lady means maiden, means virgin, means so forth and so on. And I think that happens everywhere. So for me, that's why the Bible is very unreliable. And I grew up in a very Bible centric church that looked at both books. We celebrated old and new, and kept old Jewish holy days too. So like I was very
So you were
ensconced
raised
in all of
Jewish,
this.
Jennifer. Congratulations.
Very, very closely. I didn't get circumcised. Wait, that's not a girl thing. No, we were a Christian because we accepted the New Testament and we accepted Christ as our Savior. But it was based on the whole origin thing. And one thing that I wanted to kind of rounding it into Zoroastrianism, God, now that word's going to be hard for me to say for some reason, is I think, and as a writer, and Amalek, I don't know if you know or not, I'm a professional novelist. The one thing we do with a story is you have to have a climax. You have to have some climax at the end. So when you're writing your story and you have your struggle of good and evil, the good guy, the bad guy, and then you have your characters going through it, there has to be a reason for it that's realized in the climax. And for religions, we were fine with not having it. The pagans, the polytheists were fine worshiping gods, using it to learn lessons, using it to give offerings, using it to do whatever it would, just for at the end, we would have our souls weighed, or we would get to go to the Elysian fields, or we go to, Valhalla, or wherever you're going to go, the afterlife. This time it was good and evil. You have to be a good person. You have to follow these rules. And it's like, well, why? Well, because if you don't, when the final battle happens between good and evil, and you get judged when you die, and blah blah blah, you're gonna go to hell and suffer forever. Instead of heaven where it's all nice and happy. So they had to come up with something. I think that's what the apocalypticism comes from. Is like they had to give it a point and a purpose. Otherwise, people are like, well, why do I have to give up all this fun to do what you say? And then I don't know. It's just just as someone who pays attention to story and structure. It's a theory of mine. I don't know. You're welcome to comment on that.
Yeah, I think this is what I would say about that. I think you're right, and I think that basically I share your idea that it was like a cynical reason that they put apocalyptic like storylines in this religion. I don't think that was like done by accident or for the art or anything like that. I basically view it like this. The early churches, we've talked about before how playing the music must have been like magical to like peasants and children and things like that, and the effect that must have on people. But also, that's like the musical arts. But think about the visual arts and what have been in the Middle Ages, and you're like a noble person looking at the paintings of these demons and things like that, and saying like, you're going there, you're going to hell if you don't do what you're supposed to, basically. And I think that
ruled by fear.
Yeah, exactly. Rule by fear. I mean, it's an obvious cynical, right? Like it's an obviously like it's like the best way to control. Let's just be honest, like nobles that have like unlimited power and things like that. Like it makes total sense what the
Follow the
purpose.
money.
Yeah, it was like literally like a haunted house where you go and you scare noble people with paintings of demons. Like that's what was going on there.
Yeah.
And
And even the poor people, it was, they just wanted
oh yeah,
control. And I think it became all about control. Now, in the early days of it, I don't know so much.
Yeah.
There's going to be fanatics. People are going to want to believe something. Everybody wanted answers. That, you know, maybe get tired of answering questions or asking questions. Now you just want some answers. And for some reason, someone comes along and says, "I know. Here's the thing," and everyone goes, "Oh, he knows," you know. And it's like they believe so many different things. And polytheism, you're very open-minded. So why not another god? So what? So they even had temples to the unknown god in case they offended a god they didn't know about, you know. So it was like, fine, we'll add you too. So who cares? And then they went, no, we're right, because
that's important. That's
it.
important too. The unknown God thing. That's important because that's some ancient sources basically call the Jews that they say that the unknown God. That's the Jewish God.
Right. Yep. They just wanted to make sure. Well, because he didn't have a name, right? He was just God. And they're like, well, what's his
That's
name?
why.
Like,
Yep. That's
God.
yep. Well, it's because it was confusing to other people. They were like, who's your God? And then the Jew responds like, oh, I can't say his name. So to the listener, they were like, oh, so you're talking that because a lot of that whenever you would meet somebody from like a foreign land, you would say something like, oh, like which God do you follow? And let's just say I say, oh, I follow Athena. Well, whatever I can't remember who's the
Zeus,
counterpart, like Isis in
Isis.
Egyptian lore. Is that
Isis would be more Hera. Athena would be
yeah. So Hera and Isis, right? It would be like, oh,
Yeah.
I follow Hera, right? And then somebody says, oh, that's Isis to me. So
Yeah.
when somebody would have that interaction with like a Jewish person, it would be very like confusing to them because they would be like, oh, you're talking about the God that like has no name, basically.
Well, they did used to have, because that's what I think the first one we watched about Yeshua's consort or Yeshua's wife, and they did have her. That I've already forgotten her, Amalek or something like that. You're Amalek. Was it?
Oh, Ashera.
Ashera. I knew it started with an
Asherah.
A. Ashera. Yeah. So that was there, but then that went away once Yeshua came in, and then they went, oh no, it's just El. Shh, just El. It's just God. And yeah, so you're right though. It does cause some confusion. I think that could have started some of the like those people are weird thing, and that just never went away or added to it. I don't know. But anyway, that was okay. We should probably start the video. We've been over here chatting our little buns off.
All right, let's start the video.
The major religions of the world, we all know about Christianity and Islam, Hinduism and Buddhism. These are traditions that have shaped our world to significant degrees and which still have billions of followers worldwide. But one religion that isn't as large today, but might still represent one of the most influential and important religious traditions in history, is Zoroastrianism. Being associated primarily with Iran and Central Asia and serving essentially as the state religion for some of the great Persian empires, Zoroastrianism also probably had a major influence on certain key features of the Abrahamic faiths. Many have, of course, heard about Zoroastrianism, but knowledge about the details of this religion is often very limited and shallow. People will maybe know that this is the religion that Freddie Mercury belonged to, or that it is a religion that has an essentially dualistic worldview, concerned with the fight of good against evil, light against darkness. This is all true, but there's so much of Zoroastrianism that most people aren't aware of. A long history of development with unique teachings that have, of course, evolved and changed over the centuries and millennia, but the core of which stretches back far into antiquity to some of the earliest religious literature in the history of the world. So in this episode, let's spend some time and dive deep into the fascinating and very important religion of Zoroastrianism. Veteran viewers will perhaps be aware that I've already made an episode like this about Zoroastrianism way back in the very early days of this channel. And while there's not necessarily anything wrong about that episode or anything that I think is bad that I would change necessarily as such, the production value of this channel, the videos here, has significantly increased and gotten better since then. And I feel like an important topic like Zoroastrianism deserves a video that is more pleasing to look at and listen to. Couple that with the fact that both research on this topic generally and my own knowledge of this subject has also significantly increased and developed over the years since that video. So for both of these reasons, I felt that it was necessary, that it was appropriate to do another video about Zoroastrianism that goes even deeper and takes into account all these nuances and new understandings and more complex aspects of its history, development, and teachings. Zoroastrianism is a very old religion. In terms of an organized religion, so to say, it could be considered one of the oldest in the world. And many indeed consider it the first monotheistic religion in history. There are caveats to this, especially the latter statement, as we will see, but for sure it is a tradition that stretches back very far into the past. But for this reason, it has of course evolved and changed over the millennia too, giving rise to different and sometimes competing interpretations of its theology, literature, and practices. Most of the text of the Zoroastrian religion was written down or codified for the first time during the Sasanian Empire, around the middle of the first millennium AD or CE, although these texts had been orally transmitted for a long time before that. It is also around this time, probably in relation to this, that some of the core characteristics of the religion's teachings that we are familiar with became more formally organized and established, a kind of quote-unquote orthodoxy, if you will. What I mean to point out with this is that our common understanding of Zoroastrian belief and practice is often primarily based on these developments during the
Karlyn, did you do
Sasanian
the power
Empire,
chat?
the codified
shit.
and
Yeah, I do have power chat on if you want to send something in.
sort of official teachings that were set down at this particular period in time. Thus, the teachings that had been established by then is the lens through which much older texts and aspects of the religion, such as the Gathas, are interpreted by most people. In any case, the basic features of Zoroastrianism, as most people know it, is that it is some kind of combination between a monotheistic faith with a dualistic cosmology. The worldview of Zoroastrianism is that of a clear cosmological dualism between the forces of good and evil, between light and darkness, often represented by the forces of Ahura Mazda on the one hand and Angra Mainyu on the other, or between Asha and Druj. We'll return to these terms and concepts later, but this also means that Zoroastrianism is a heavily ethical religion, concerned with the individual's ethical actions in this world, so living according to the principles of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds to promote the forces of Asha, of order and goodness in the world, and also promising an afterlife of pleasure or punishment depending on how the person acted during their lifetime. These characteristics of the religion are largely true, although some may need to be nuanced a little bit. But we need to go a little deeper, and from different perspectives, to get a proper understanding of the complexities of this tradition. I think it might serve us well to, as we often do this in a chronological order. So, with that said, what is the origins or early developments of Zoroastrianism? Well, at the core of Zoroastrian ritual and belief are a set of writings, a group of poems or songs called the Gathas. This, for all intents and purposes, is considered the oldest source and beginning of...
You think that looks like a bunch of dicks?
Since it is episode 69, I am obligated to look for all the sexual innuendos tonight.
Well, I appreciate that, but those are weird dicks, though.
They're facing that way. They're just lines. They're just scrot dick. Sorry.
Okay.
Nobody.
Thanks,
I'm going to be a little... I'm going to try not to be too naughty, but I'm going to be a little naughty.
Okay. You are the erotic fiction writer.
Zoroastrianism in some way.
Why not?
The Gathas serve as the basis for much of the core teachings of the religion and as an important part of ritual and practical life for Zoroastrians to this day. The Gathas are ascribed to an ancient figure called Zarathustra, sometimes referred to in Greek as Zoroaster, a poet and sage who is considered the original founder, quote-unquote, of Zoroastrianism. Depending on who you ask, Zarathustra is described as a prophet, a poet, sage, a philosopher, or perhaps all of the above, but all agree that if he is a historical person, he is indeed a core figure for the formation and origins of the religion. Scholars both within and outside the Zoroastrian tradition greatly disagree on dating the life of Zarathustra and the Gathas, some placing him at a very early date around the middle of the 2nd millennium BC, while others place his life in the middle of the 1st millennium BC, so around the year 500 BC or so, at the very early days of the Achaemenid Empire. Based on the linguistic features
There's
of the
no way
Gathas
that's true,
themselves,
by the
the
way.
majority of scholars today, I would say,
Dude,
Why?
hold on, let him finish a statement about what the majority of scholars think real quick. I just want to see
Okay.
this.
and I do tend to agree with them, favors the earlier date, thus placing the life of Zarathustra sometime around the year 1500
Yeah, there you
BC,
go.
give or take.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was just gonna say, dude.
Okay.
This is what I kind of like about these videos that people don't really understand is that I like learning like what do other people think or what do they what do they believe, right? So I've looked at the arguments for the dating of Zoroaster, and I would say there's like I'm like 50-50 with two options. First of all, 1500 BC, almost assuredly. The idea that he like came around 600 or 500 makes no sense. We've got like writings about that are like word for word from his teachings or whatever that appear later, way before that. So it makes no sense. It's like a coping from people doing that. It's like weird. It's like a weird reason that they want to do that. But that's the first thing. The second thing I think is possible is that Zoroaster, much like the prophets from the Hebrew Bible, was not a real person.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I mean, like I said, I'm 50-50. Either he's from 1500 or he was not a real person. If you read like the story of Zoroaster, basically like the tales of Zoroaster, all of them are much, much, much later traditions. They don't become adopted until way after the traditions, in the same way that we talked about before with like Jesus, basically. Like the Gospels were written way later than Jesus lived. Like for whatever reason, people think that the Gospels are like eyewitness accounts written over the shoulder of Jesus right after he died, and that's just like not the case. They were written way, way later, like generations later. So I think that the Zoroaster account is like this, but on a way farther scale because of obviously it being 1500 BC and things like that.
Well, couldn't it be like I've argued with Jesus, which is like I think there was a historical person, but not necessarily the historical person that was in the Bible, but it was just like it was like a nugget of truth that was then extrapolated out into a myth.
Yeah, so there's like two things. So there's like the teachings of Zoroaster, and then there's the like life of Zoroaster. Okay, and like basically like there's Zoroaster Gospels is what I would describe it as, where it's like describing his life and what he did. And every single one of those stories are totally mythological. They're total, like none of them, like they like get geography wrong. They get like chronological things wrong. They reference like, I think one of the Zoroaster tales references camels, and like camels literally didn't even appear in the region until like 500 or 400 AD in like large, like there's so many problems with it. So this is the issue, right? Is whenever you're looking at that, like, okay, so if we're talking about the guy from the stories from like the tales of Zoroaster, then like if it's all mythologized, then what are we even talking about? If you take away the Superman, you don't have like a historical Clark Kent, right? Like it doesn't make sense.
I
That's what I'd
can
say.
see that like there's a dude who had a theory and he talked about it in school or around a campfire, and people went, "Hey, I remember this guy Zoroaster. He said this thing," and then it turned into an idea system.
Well, this is the other thing too,
Later.
is those traditions and like the writing of what I would say, like the teachings that this guy's gonna go over, like the Zoroastrian teachings, were not developed by one guy in one lifetime. Okay,
No.
this was a tradition that was developed over generations. So like the idea that one guy came along and like he taught this and like that's now what we have, like, is these teachings that he told us, and that's what we're going by. That is like total cope, total propaganda, total bullshit. It's a tradition that was developed over centuries and generations, that basically like the way that they kind of preached it was, hey, this guy came and taught this and here's his writings, and like we should listen to him, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nothing starts in full form. Everybody adds a bead to the necklace, kind of a thing.
So where did these ideas come from?
So it would have came from like a priestly class of people. So like many people. It would be like saying like Silicon Valley, right? So like Silicon Valley Everyone knows what that means when I say that. It's like a group of people, but you couldn't you don't point to it and say, like, if Silicon Valley makes something or like a genre or a product, like that's not a person, right? Like that's a group of people that made it. And that's what I think made these religions. All of them were basically made by like an ancient version of a think tank.
Interesting.
Cool.
I'm going to go use a little goddess room. I'll be right back.
All right.
This makes his poems or songs, the Gathas, roughly contemporary with the composition of the Rig Veda in the Vedic culture in India, making it some of the oldest religious and philosophical literature in the history of the world. And indeed, this connection is important in other ways too, because the context of early Zoroastrianism is very much connected to the Vedic culture in India. The Indo-Aryan language group that migrated into northern India, which became central to the formation of quote-unquote Hinduism or the Vedic culture, and the Proto-Iranians that migrated to the West share a common origin, both linguistically and culturally, you could say. And we can see this in the similarity of many terms and concepts shared between Zoroastrianism and Indic religion, such as words like devas, Ashura versus Ahura, Hauma and Soma, etc. So we should imagine Zarathustra growing up and living in a society not unlike that of the Vedic culture in India. And when we read the Gathas, for instance, I think it's much more fruitful to do that through this particular lens rather than reading it through more of an Abrahamic lens that I think a lot of people tend to do today. While we aren't sure about much of Zarathustra's life at all.
Go ahead.
That's actually what I think. So in my view, that's what Zoroastrianism is kind of like this, what I would call like the Indo-Aryan religious tradition that, you know, basically formed the basis of what we know as like Hinduism today and like all those traditions. Is that like Indo-Aryan religion mixed with their local version of shamanism, which was which took the place of fire worship, basically. Like the whole area, it was littered with fire worship and cults, essentially. So what Zoroastrianism is it's literally just the state. It ends up becoming the state religion of Persia, essentially, and it's just the blending of those two concepts, because look just of where they are in the world, just geographically, right? They're literally between India and the Middle East. So they're taking the Babylonian, Mesopotamian, and Indo-European like those two worlds and mixing them together with the Indian tradition and the fire cult thing. Like it's basically like taking all those ideas, all those memes, and blending them together. Because
what did the fire cults do? That's more interesting.
Like look up. I mean, they're called like the. It's hard to explain, but basically, like, there's a lot of evidence that essentially, like, that's what they were into back then, was just like they literally like worship fires and eternal flames. So I don't know if you've ever looked into this before, but a lot of the cities and towns and things like that, they believed in like eternal flames. So they would have this is the fire that we've had been burning for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Okay.
So they would venerate those flames or whatever is the best way I would describe it. But obviously, like, those fires weren't actually lit for thousands and thousands of years. But so what that was right. So what they were doing was, this is what the scholars believe, is essentially in the same way that we and later developed the idea that, like, oh, God tells the king, like, oh, you have earthly authority, and now everyone has to listen to the king because God says so, right? Like that concept of authority, like divinely inspired authority. The ancient, like, tribal version of that in Persia was fire worship, where the fire, this eternal fire, the priest or whatever can look into the fire and discern what he's saying, and that's how they get their authority. So it was like a way of divine authority.
Divination.
Yeah. It was a way of of projecting divine authority onto like worldly, secular, or like, worldly rulers, I would say.
So may I comment on that too? So fires, the destruction force and the life-giving force at the same time. It is literally the meeting of the worlds, symbolically, in a lot of cultures. I'm not saying this is the exact same thing they were thinking of, but it's not for nothing. And most cultures feel the same way about fire, because it does seem to consume, but it's also life-giving. If you don't have fire, you can't be warm, you can't scare away the predators, and you can't cook food. So you have to have it, but you have to be careful with it, because if it gets out of control, it will ruin everything. So it is also a balance. It also represents creativity, but it also is like a soul or spiritual representation, because of how unpredictable it is, because it feels so ethereal, it's automatically magical in a way. I think everybody kind of has that feeling when you're in a campfire or a fireplace or even a candle. It's just there's something ethereal about it, something very spiritual. And so it has all these divine qualities now. It almost itself is a deity. And there are lots of fire deities out there. So, and the divination power, because you do get a little trancy staring into a fire. I'm sure most of us have had just that experience of at least relaxation, if not anything else, more intuitive happening. And having that kind of power in an element is why it is so important from in a God perspective, and how they use that and have it as a fire. The cultish aspect became the important thing, because somebody's always going to take an idea and run. Isn't that what capitalism is about? Like, you take an idea, you find a niche, you take an idea, you run with it, people buy it. They buy the product, whether they buy it ideologically or with money. And that is kind of how a lot of the cults and things are. And keep in mind, when they say cults, they're not talking about, how we think of cults. For them, a cult then was just like a religion. You were the cult of Zeus, or the cult of Inanna. But in this case, it's just a religious sect. It's a group of believers who believe the same thing. And anyway, so that I just kind of wanted to piggyback on what Amalek was saying, and that yes, they used it as a divine thing, and the history of that are these possible reasons of why they venerated it so much.
I mean, I totally get. I think probably no one here understands fire as well as I do in terms of like the element and the power of it. But like, I was just curious about like their different worship practices and like how it connected to all of it. That was all. But I totally get what you're saying too, Jennifer.
All we have to go on are the many later legends as well as clues in the Gothists themselves. It's widely argued that he was from what is today northeastern Iran. The Gathas are composed in a language referred to as Old Avestan. And the poems uses imagery and metaphors that point to a society of mobile pastoralism, as there are many references to horses and livestock, including the important notion of the so-called soul of the cow as some kind of cosmic concept. The soul of the cow in the Gathas represents the soul of the world in some way, and Zarathustra talks about the shepherd as an ideal person that takes care of the livestock. And in a similar way, the good person is someone that takes care of the soul of the cow, that is, nature itself and the world at large, as a shepherd would take care of his animals. So Zarathustra figured in a mobile pastoral society with a religious tradition that was probably strongly related to the Vedic one, with a heavy focus on ritual and probably things like sacrifices and offerings, and an essentially polytheistic theology with many different gods or deities. Indeed, it seems that this culture shared certain gods with its neighbors in India, such as Indra and Vayu, among others. Although it's also interesting to consider that the terms for the gods are sort of reversed. So the good gods in India, in the Indic context, are referred to as the Devas, whereas the Ahuras are the bad gods. In the Iranian context, it's reversed. So here, the Ahuras are the good gods, whereas the Devas, as we will see, are a term that refers to evil spirits or evil gods. So in that way, they're reversed. But we can see still that this religious tradition was shared. They share a common ancestry, a common origin, and are very much like each other. Later legends about Zarathustra tell of how he was a priest of this older religion. Thus, he would have been in charge of performing rites and other related things. But as he traveled around the region, he was struck by the violence and unethical behavior of many of the people. Something was wrong, but he wasn't quite sure what it was or how to solve it. This is one of the key themes that we find in the Gathas when we read these texts that are attributed to Zarathustra. It is very much concerned with ethics and pointing out how leaders and people around the world, what was his world, which was Iran at that time, were sort of corrupted and evil and egotistical, violent, all these things. This is a very common theme in these texts. But then something very dramatic happened, which would change his life, and if it is a historical event, change the course of the world.
Dun dun dun.
Love the music in this.
It is said that during a spring festival, where he might have been working in his function as priest, he went down to the river to fetch some water. But as he was stepping out of the water, he suddenly had an intense vision of light. Then, a shining being referred to as Vohumana, good purpose, spoke to him. Zarathustra
Like a
was
burning
given a
bush?
kind of revelation,
Maybe.
where the truths about reality and its working was revealed to him just as they are. And at the center of this revelation was a quite radical concept. Rather than the more polytheistic religion that he was taught
What?
in,
Hang
it was
on.
revealed to him.
Go ahead.
Do you remember the old Ten Commandments? The original, like from the
I
back
love that
in the
movie.
day?
I've watched the Ten Commandments like probably at least 4 dozen times. I'm not even joking. I love that movie.
Okay, so when like Moses goes to the burning bush scene,
Mhm.
and he comes back and his hair is all white and he's blinded,
Yep.
and he's like stumbling back, and he's completely different. And his wife like just looks up and she's like, "Oh, he has seen God."
Yes.
I was like, it's
He had
just
very pretty eyes.
it fucking cracked me up so hard because like, and I remember as a kid, I was like, how does she know that? Mom's like, I think he's blind now and God turned his hair white. I don't know. I'm like, well, how does she know he's seen God? Like he could have just been walking through the valley. I asked a lot of questions when I was a kid, but I didn't accept that shit. I was like, I don't get it. But it's still funny. It's just the melodrama of it. I gotta love it. The vision. It's beautiful.
I love that movie. Old movies are the best. Old movies with Yul Brynner especially are the best.
Oh, absolutely.
That there's only one creative absolute force and source in reality called Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda is often translated as the wise lord or the lord of wisdom, and represents one of the key
And
concepts
start calling
in
myself the Lord of
Zoroastrianism.
Wisdom.
There you go.
Ahura
I love
Mazda,
it.
later often written as Ormazd, is the creative force behind all existence, at least everything good and harmonious in the world. Especially later, Ahura Mazda is often seen as somewhat equivalent to the monotheistic God, the sole creator and sustainer of the world. But it isn't entirely clear just how it should be conceived in these earliest sources. Some translators and scholars today, favoring a more quote-unquote philosophical interpretation of the Gathas and the teachings of Zarathustra, such as Ashk Dahlén, who recently published a translation of the Gathas into Swedish, choose to translate Ahura Mazda as something like the high wisdom, thus giving it a more abstract philosophical ring compared to the more theological interpretations of Ahura Mazda as a god in the more conventional sense that seemed to have become the norm later on. Whether or not this story about Zarathustra's revelation on the riverbank is historically true or not, it serves as a popular legend about his life that also legitimizes his role as a kind of enlightened sage. But scholars are unsure of just how to categorize Zarathustra. It used to be popular to refer to him as a prophet, thus the prophet of Zoroastrianism, similar to Muhammad being the prophet and founder of Islam. Indeed, many Muslim scholars in history also chose to look at Zarathustra precisely as one of the many prophets sent by God mentioned in the Quran, also thus legitimizing placing the Zoroastrians under the category of the people of the book. And it's still popular today to talk about him in such a way. But this might be a bit anachronistic in a way, reading his life through an Abrahamic lens, so to say. Perhaps he can better be compared to the rishis or sages of ancient India that originated the Vedas. Some, as we saw, also choose to categorize him as a philosopher, and this can have a significant impact on how we read the Gathas. I think what we can be most safe in claiming is that he was a poet, or a singer maybe. After all, the one probably direct source that we have of him is the Gathas themselves, a collection of poem songs. So clearly he was some kind of sage poet, blessed with unique insight into the workings of reality and the universe. There is a term in Old Avestan, which is used self-referentially in the Gathas themselves, called a mantran. This means something like a person that uses words like poetry to convey deep existential truths with clarity. I think this, if anything, is perhaps what we can most surely ascribe to Zarathustra, not least because it is a term that he seemingly uses for himself too. The insight that Zarathustra was given about reality, whether through the famous story at the riverbank or not, is what he expresses in the Gathas, and which serves as some of the most key aspects of Zoroastrian thought and belief. The Gathas also serve as the core of the wider corpus of Zoroastrian sacred scriptures known as the Avesta, which, aside from the Gathas, include many other texts, such as the Yashts, or hymns to divine powers, the Vendidad, the Visperad, among many other texts. And these texts are all written in a language group or groups known as Old Avestan, which is from roughly 1500 to 1000 BC, and Young Avestan, which is from 1000 BC to around 500 BC. In general, the Zoroastrian scriptures are very varied, and new ones appeared as late as the Islamic period, around the 8th to 9th centuries AD. But the Avesta, the oldest and most important collection of sacred scriptures, which includes the Gathas, make up what we could consider the core of the tradition. And it was only transmitted orally until the first few centuries AD. While we should remember that Zoroastrianism, just like any religion, is a tradition that changed and evolved over the centuries and millennia. So the religion practiced by Darius, the Achaemenid emperor, was quite different in many ways from the religion practiced by the Sasanian empires a few centuries later. Still, if we look at these oldest sources and these texts, we might be able to reconstruct a kind of core set of teachings and characteristics that are true, for the most part at least, across the board for most of Zoroastrian history. So with this in mind, what can we say about the teachings of Zoroastrianism? I think we can begin by looking at the scriptures themselves. In fact, the very
Hold on, real quick,
opening
pause
of
it
the
before we get
first
into this, 'cause
Gatha or song,
I
it
think he's
scratches that.
basically done going over like the origins of it historically. Just one thing I want to mention is that it's important to Zoroastrians' relationship with specifically Judaism is this. Basically, according to the Bible, like let's just have an internal critique of the Bible itself and just say, okay, it's all true, or it is history. Basically, what's going on is the first temple is destroyed and the Jews are carried away from Jerusalem and they're taken to Babylon as slaves, okay? And then, according to their story, God basically chooses Cyrus to be a Messiah, is what they call him, that comes in, takes out the Babylonians, conquers Babylon, and then places the Jews back in their homeland and rebuilds their temple. And they call him a Messiah, basically. And then we have what is basically called like the Persian period, and the level of basically, like, if I just sat down with you in like a list of all the different parts of Judaism before and after this period, you would see major changes. Like, there's basically like no concept of hell. And then the Persian period happens, and there's like they have the version of hell that you understand almost today, kind of thing, or like the Zoroastrian version of hell. And there's just like there's dozens. The idea of like resurrection, right? That is not in the Bible. That is not in Judaism beforehand. And then after the Persian period, it is. The idea like previously, like Eden was like this mythical past, like almost like it didn't really exist. It was just supposed to be, it's hard to explain, but really afterwards it was like this heavenly paradise to return to. That was from Zoroastrianism. Like there's just so many parts that basically after this happens, it directly changes the type of theology that the Jews have. And the most important ones I would say that we have today, that are working with today and that matters today, is the end times lore. Like the one day the end time is going to happen, and then the Messiah concept basically comes out of Zoroastrianism as well. They had what was it called? Hold on, what is the Messiah called in Zoroastrianism? I forget what it's called here. Let me see here. It's called the Seosant is what it's called, right? So they had this concept in Zoroastrianism, and like I said, so you can see how those things affect our politics today, right? I mean, the whole state of Israel, the whole point of Judaism now today is waiting for their Mashiach to come and rule from Zion and all that other stuff. So it comes from this tradition.
They're never happy. They already had a Messiah. I mean,
he didn't fulfill any of the messianic prophecies. I don't know. I'm with the Jews on this one. I'm not gonna lie. If I was an ancient Jew, I would be like, that Jesus guy definitely was not the Messiah.
No, I mean the dude you were talking about, Silas. Like, Cyrus, they had one. Why do they need?
Well, yeah, that's what they did. So they have this concept. So that's important. So that's the concept of like the dual Messiah. So basically, Yeah, they have like the warrior conqueror Cyrus Messiah, and then they have like the suffering Messiah, is what they call it. Like, it's this dualistic concept of that ends up becoming Jesus.
Right. Or at least not for them, but for Christians. But the
Yeah, yeah.
Christians don't acknowledge any other kind of Messiah. So they just took Jesus and ran, and that was the end of it. But I almost brought up the Anunnaki, Karlyn.
I knew you were going to, Jennifer. I had a feeling.
As soon as he said eat it, I'm like, yeah, but that's where they did the genetic experiments with the first Adam and the Eve, and then the other one. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you watch any of our Anunnaki coverage there, Amalek, but it is you should watch it.
Are you versed in Anunnaki?
I used to be into that kind of stuff, and it's interesting and all that thing, but I don't think any of it's like aliens or any of that stuff. I think it's just like I'm like boring there. You're not gonna like what I have to say.
You don't
think it's all boring.
we were a slave race created to make gold for aliens?
I'm down with it.
I used to like think that was really interesting, and I thought that was like totally possible, but no, I just think that like these are just like obvious, like I said before in this thing, I think that these are just like sci-fi. That's what this is. This is like the ancient version of sci-fi. So like the idea that you would come up with this that concept isn't very like surprising to me, but also a lot of the translations that stuff's based off of, like Hitchens and what's that? All those, I don't know.
The Emerald Tablets.
All that stuff, dude. Like so many of the translations are stretching so hard. I've looked into this from like experts, and some of the like, what's that black guy's name?
With the modern day scientist or an older?
I'm trying to think of what's that black guy's name that like he talks about this all the time, the Anunnaki and all this other stuff. He talks about it being in the Bible.
Oh, Billy. We
Yeah,
watched
Billy.
him. Yeah.
Billy Carson. Yeah. Like I think that these guys, like, I don't hate them or anything like that, but I don't think that they're like right in their translations.
I think it's open to translation. That's the thing. It's like, why not just question all things, ask all the questions. Why couldn't it be aliens? Why couldn't, this, that, or the other thing? What I find the most interesting is that every story, whether it is Anunnaki or Zoroaster or freaking anybody, always has something. It always comes back down to either proving the Bible story right or proving the Bible story wrong, or something that says this is where the original Bible story came from. It's like everybody's competing to be the original thought master in this spirituality.
Oh, yeah.
I find that very interesting, which is why I prefer polytheism personally. I think it's all right, whatever.
have there been any like major religions that have developed in like the last, like much more recently?
Besides Scientology?
Well, Scientology is, I don't know if I count Scientology
Mormonism
as
is a big deal.
Mormonism, I guess, yeah.
That's a spin-off of Judaism, though, as well. That's the thing.
Lutheranism is pretty recent.
Which one did you say?
Lutheranism, Martin Luther. That in the time period of man. I mean, didn't he come around around the 1400s or something? And then I think the what's his name as far as the Mormons, it was more in the 70s.
Yeah, I just like consider all those like Christian, right? So like that's all the thing. I don't. There's not a whole lot of like new major religions. I would say even Mormonism isn't really new. It's just like a spin-off sect of Judaism. So like there's not a lot of new religions, I guess.
Why do you think that is? Like,
yes.
No, but like seriously, this is what I was thinking. Like in the last little segment of this, like, why do you think that is? Because it feels like they're been like back in the day they were just inventing religions left and right. Why?
I know why. Because look, think about how dumb people are right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about it. Internalize how dumb people are. Just
I don't really want to think about it, but okay. Yeah.
Think about how like 80% of people that are on the internet are retarded, and in the real world, it's probably higher, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, just really internalize that. Okay, now I want you to imagine how dumb people must have been in the Bronze Age. Imagine how dumb they would have been, okay?
I don't want to imagine that, though.
Just imagine how dumb they would have been. Okay, now imagine that there's just one, maybe a handful of people that are like just as smart as we are or whatever, however you want to term this, okay? How else would you get them to do anything that you want them to do? How else? There is no other way.
Creating fake gods to control people.
There's literally no other way that I could possibly imagine you ever got anybody to do anything at all ever without telling them that they didn't do it. Like God is going to shoot you with laser beams or whatever it is. Okay. Like there's literally no way to mobilize people.
Yep. Ruled by fear. I keep saying it.
It's look, like I have really huge issues with religion, but it's because this is my view of it. Now, okay, thank you, religion. I view it. Thank you for getting us out of the time period with all the retards. Now we have hit a critical mass where we have the technology now and enough smart people where we can like handle it from here. Thank you. We now have enough of the smart people. We now know, okay, now we are like conscious and we understand what that was. We appreciate that for controlling all the dumb people and getting them to this point. But now in the modern age, we can just be like scientific and we don't need this like superstition. That's my view of it. But
Well,
that's how it was.
Karlyn, you and I are part of, I would say, the most current, but also most ancient religion of all time,
Well,
which is
yeah.
the spiritual, looking at past lives, your journey between lives, manifestation, the things that like that itself, it doesn't have a name. People say, oh, it's a new age. And you and I both know that's a crock.
Yeah.
There's not really a name for it. That's kind of why I call it omnism, I guess, because it's simpler, or I call myself a garden variety pagan. But yeah, we're already kind of doing that, and it's taking things over, but it's also not new. It's just being newly framed. So maybe we're watching the birth of a new religion now. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know.
No,
But now I'm depressed. We had a whole conversation about how stupid people are. I'm like, okay, great.
Just imagine how dumb people were back then. Seriously.
They still are.
I
We
mean,
just
look,
have computers now.
I mean, look. We're talking literacy rates.
How did they make the pyramids then?
That didn't make the pyramids. That was alien.
Hold on. By a bunch of people convincing a bunch of retards that God told them that they make the pyramids. That's basically what happened. Like almost assuredly, that's how the pyramids were built. Some guy that was smart told a bunch of retards to do it because God said so. Period. The end. Like obviously, that's how it was made, right?
So we just need to start our own religion, is what I'm
hearing.
hearing.
Hold on. Yeah, this is the thing. Is now that you know this, that the only way. Okay, so I'll do this spiel here. Everyone knows about land power. Everyone knows about air power. Everyone understands water power, right? Naval power. But what nobody truly understands is the most important power of them all, and it's retard power. Controlling the retards, because with the power of retards, you can't lose. Because who can beat a retard? They never lose. They walk away from every argument thinking that they won. So the true power is derived from who can control the retards. So with that information, what does that mean? That means you need to make your own basically like version of retard control. So that's what we need to do. You need
Karlyn,
to
get the website name now. Retard power.
No, I'm done. I can't do it. I don't want the retards near me. I am building a wall to keep the retards out.
I love this. It needs to be
that is what's good. Basically, like ancient Jews came up with a way to like control their retards and get them in line. Yeah, right. Make them stop being degenerate retards. And then they were like, oh wow, we can do this with like the retards that are living all around us right now. Like, look, we're like literally just living in a sea of like people in Egypt, people in the Greeks, the Roman, like they hate all these groups and they viewed them, if you just read what they're writing, exactly how I'm describing this situation. Like,
how do you mean? What do they
like? They describe them as cattle. How else would you describe them other than that? Like that's where it comes from. That's where this goyim and the whole all this stuff comes from.
I don't think any of it has changed, honestly. It's
it's
still happening. It's still a thing. And there were some great philosophies and some great things that came out of many eras. But yeah, somebody's gonna take control. And like I said, they're gonna take control of, they're gonna make you do the thing they want you to do. And you know, I don't want to go into all, because I'm thinking of all these different religions now and like how some of them are very harmless and they're nice, you know. I think mostly the polytheism, the Celtic and things like that. But if they believe a thing has to be a certain way, they will. If it's going to be someone who wants control, you can do it that way. I think they've developed many different ways. I don't think it's just one way every single time. But in some cases, absolutely. They were like, how can we get everybody's money? I know. Tell them that if they give us coin and tell us their dirty little secrets, they can go to heaven. That's how we do it. Here's a rule book. Enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of tax collection literally started from the temples and from the churches and from the priest class of almost every country or every nation in the world.
Yep, because they wanted to not work. They're like, how can we just sit around and like philosophize all day and make
I
someone
mean,
else pay
it
for
makes
it? Oh,
perfect
I
sense.
know.
If you're in a
Offering.
village of like, let's just say a village of 3,000 people and you're the smartest person, are you not just saying, hey, I talked to God and he said this? Like that is
It's
that's
like
exactly what I'm doing, right?
you
Like
know what
how else were
it's
you?
like. It's like the movie The Invention of Lying.
I love
Yeah.
that movie so much.
Mhm.
Oh my god. Yes.
For people who don't know, The Invention of Lying is basically like it's literally like the everyone in the world tells the truth because no one has even thought about the concept of lying until one day one guy figures out how to lie.
Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Mhm.
He invents the first lie that he can manipulate anybody, and it is magical, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
All right. Great. Okay, so we live in the invention of lying, and the Jews are the best liars, and
Yeah,
yeah.
they
I
were
mean,
like the priest. They were the priest kings of the ancient world. They were the absolute pinnacle storyteller, basically, because they were sitting between all three traditions or four traditions, I guess you could say. And they were literally just taking all of them and then like being like, oh, this one from this one's good, this one from this one's good, and they're just mixing them and things like that. And they had a higher literacy rate than the surrounding people, basically.
Great. Great.
Zarathustra, where he says, quote, "In reverence for him with hands outstretched, at first I entreat you all, O Ahura Mazda, for the actions of support of the Spirit Holy through truth, or Asha, through whom you may gratify the intellect of good thought and the soul of the cow. I approach you with good thought, O Mazda Ahura, so that you may grant me the blessings of the two existences, the material and that of thought, the blessings emanating from truth with which you can put your supporters in comfort. I extol you as ever before, O truth, Asha, and good thought, Vuhumana, and Mazda Ahura, for all of whom right-mindedness increases also unfading power. May you come to my cause for support. Inspired by good thoughts and being a witness for Mazda Ahura, I have in mind one soul for his commendation by my song, as well as the rewards for his actions. For as long as I can and I am able, I shall look out in my search for truth." Already in this opening of the Gathas, recited as a key part of the Zoroastrian liturgy or yasna, we already have some clues to the key teachings of the religion. First of all, there is only one creative force or God in reality, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom, who is called upon constantly in the text. He is the source of all good, all light, all creation and wisdom. This is why many have referred to Zoroastrianism as essentially monotheistic, or even the first monotheistic religion in the world. But things are also a lot more complicated than that, as we will see. Secondly, what lies at the very core of the Zoroastrian scriptures and teachings is essentially an ethical message. This is the key message that is hammered home again and again. Humans have free will, and there is a very clear idea of right and wrong, of good and evil. Indeed, inherent in this ethical message is a very strong dualism. This is not the mind-body dualism of Descartes or the horizontal dualism of certain strands of Platonism or, say, Christianity, but rather a vertical dualism. All of created reality is divided into truth and falsehood, into right and wrong, light and darkness. Both of the two worlds mentioned in the quote above, that of material and that of thought, are included in this dualism. So it's not a matter versus spirit situation as in Christianity, for example. On the one side, there is Asha, a concept meaning truth, or that which is
That was my
right,
little
real,
puppy.
or things like
Hmm.
order and harmony. This can be compared to the Vedic idea of Rita, or perhaps even Ma'at in ancient Egyptian religion. The creation of Ahura Mazda is essentially good, beautiful, and harmonious. It is perfect because Ahura Mazda himself is perfect and good. Asha, or truth, is the principle of that goodness and order in the world, the way things are supposed to be, according to the wisdom of Ahura Mazda. But on the other side of the coin, there is also Druj, which means the lie or deception. This is the very opposite of Asha, and it is conceived, at least in later Zoroastrianism, as a force that has been introduced to the perfect creation of Ahura Mazda from the outside, so to say.
I
And the human
named her for
being and
that.
all of creation is
Oh.
caught in this place that contains both good,
Truth
the
and
domain
peace
of
and
Ahura
light.
Mazda and Asha, and evil, that of Druj and its forces. So our world of creation contains both good and evil, at least in this current state. These forces or concepts are often also personified in different ways, especially as we get into the younger Avesta and later Zoroastrian writings. In the Gathas themselves, it isn't always entirely clear how we should think of these concepts. Some readings by scholars such as John Kellens and the aforementioned Ashkdalian see much of these things as simply psychological and internal concepts and workings within the human person. The creation of Ahura Mazda is essentially good in its totality, but within the human soul there exist inclinations in two directions. On the one hand, there is spenta mainu, often translated as beneficent inspiration or beneficent spirit, which leads you to work for the benefit of Asha and goodness, and almost as a kind of faculty of Ahura Mazda. And on the other hand, there is angra mainu, the destructive spirit that inclines to evil, deception, and destruction. However this oldest text should be interpreted, later Zoroastrian writings and teachings have a more cosmological perspective on this dualism. Ahura Mazda is the one creator god of the cosmos whose creation is perfect and good. And Angra Mainyu becomes a kind of personified spirit himself as the opposite of Ahura Mazda, the force in reality that has infiltrated the perfect creation of Ahura Mazda to spread druj, lies and deception, things like violence, death, and decay. So the world we live in today is one in which both of these forces, Asha and Druj, represented to some degree by Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu respectively, are at work simultaneously. And it is our work, our job as human beings, to choose the path of Asha, of truth and order, and to dispel the darkness of Druj from the world. In the Gathas, Zarathustra talks a lot about the shepherd as a kind of ideal person, one who takes care of the livestock and of nature, as the image of the person who follows the path of Asha. This he compares to people who instead are misled by the devas, the evil gods or deities, to seek power, money, or destroy the world in different ways through violence. So you see what I mean when I say that the Zoroastrian message is an essentially ethical one. This fight between good and evil, between truth and deception, Asha and Druj, is the very core of the religion and the Avestan scriptures. And the human being promotes Asha partly through performing the Zoroastrian rituals, of course, such as the Yasna liturgy or the daily prayers, etc. But on a more personal, practical level, this is done by adhering to the main, you could say, the main mantra or instruction that people are to follow. Humata, Hukta, Vareshta, which means good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. It's a pretty neat and simple instruction, but this also, of course, requires knowing what makes up good deeds, for instance, by being able to identify which aspects of the world are part of the good creation of Ahura Mazda and which are the result of Angra Mainyu. So there are certain things in the world that are seen as pure and sacred, such as fire and running water, that must not be defiled in any way. At the same time, there are certain things in the world, like some animals seen as impure or evil. This includes snakes and frogs and things like this. And it is sort of encouraged
just
that
like
you are supposed to
reptiles and
kill
amphibians.
these animals of
Apparently.
evil to promote Asha in the world. The goal of the Zoroastrian is thus to live his or her life in accordance with Asha or truth, to devote themselves to Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom or High Wisdom, and to worship him and the goodness that he represents in thought, speech, and action. The person who has accomplished this, who adheres to Asha in their life, is known as an Ashavan, thus representing this ultimate goal of the human being. This stands in contrast to the Dregvant, the follower of Druj, who spreads evil and falsehood in the world. In the Gathas, Zarathustra says, quote, I replied, firstly, I am Zarathustra, a veritable opponent of the evildoer, but a powerful friend of the good am I. So long as I can sing my songs of praise for thee, O Mazda, so long shall I strive to enlighten and awaken all to the realization of thy eternal dominion. And this also figures into the large cosmogonical and eschatological picture as well, especially if we take into account later Zoroastrian writings too, such as the important and fascinating Vidya-Dad. This is a young Avestan text from, well, again, from around 1100 to 500 BC. Here, there's a clear account of sacred history that is presented. It begins with the creation of the world by Ahura Mazda as a perfect creation. This wonderful situation lasts for a while, often sometimes considered 6,000 years, before the evil spirit Angra Mainyu sort of infiltrates or infects this perfect world, spreading Druj and creating the situation that we have now, a world of both good and evil. This fight between good and evil continues, but reaches a kind of turning point with the life and, you could say, mission of Zarathustra himself and the establishment of Zoroastrian rituals and worldview that sort of starts the process of Asha's victory over Druj, the gradual victory of light over darkness. In the end, and connected with the arrival of a savior figure called the Seoshant, the world will be revitalized at last, an event or concept
That's
called
the Messiah,
Freshokareti.
basically.
Yeah,
This
there it
word
is.
is connected, as
What was that?
That's the Messiah figure, the Sayar that I was talking about. That's where it
Hey.
comes from.
Right on.
you can probably hear, with the English word fresh. And we can thus kind of imagine it as the world becoming fresh again. The darkness of Angra Mainyu and Druj finally being dispelled, and the creation of Ahura Mazda once again being able to be what it was from the beginning, a perfect world of harmony and order. At this juncture, the Zoroastrian scriptures also imagine, because of its strongly ethical nature, of course, that the individual human being will also face a kind of retribution here. After the world is redeemed, every human being will be judged based on their actions in life. This was quite unique at this time. The idea that our ethical actions affect our afterlife directly, rather than things like status or other features that were more common in other traditions, so including the ancient Iranian religion. The Ashavan, the person who has followed and promoted Asha in their life, will live a pleasant life in the company of Ahura Mazda in this perfect world. Whereas the Dregvant, who promoted deception and evil in the world, he will be punished and face a very unpleasant afterlife in a place called the House of Lies. It is taught that at this point, the dead person will be forced to walk across a bridge. On the other side is paradise for all intents and purposes, but on the bottom below the bridge is the House of Lies, what can essentially be considered hell. For the Ashavan, or righteous person, this bridge will be very wide and easy to cross. But for a quote-unquote bad person, the bridge will contract to be as thin as the edge of a blade, making it almost impossible to cross and causing the person to basically inevitably fall down into eternal punishment. Zarathustra says, quote, "The Karpans, priests, and the Kavis, so worldly leaders, have tyrannized over humanity. Their evil actions are destructive of life. Verily, the conscience of such a one shall torment his soul. And thus, when they shall come to the bridge of judgment, their abode for endless ages shall be in the house of the lie." For those of you that are familiar with the Abrahamic faiths, a lot of this will, of course, feel right at home, because these features are basically identical to certain eschatological beliefs in religions like, particularly in Islam and Christianity. And we'll return to these similarities and possible connections later on in the episode too. At this point, I think it is also worthwhile to discuss more in detail the theology at play here, because it can be a little complicated. Like we said, Zoroastrianism is often called the first monotheistic religion in the world, and this isn't without reason. Indeed, as we saw, the Gathas and Avestan scriptures consider Ahura Mazda to be the one creator of the world. As far as we consider a god, with a capital G, Ahura Mazda is it, and no one compares with him. But things aren't really this simple and neat, especially if we try to look at it and define monotheism through the lens of the Abrahamic religions and the kind of monotheism that we find in, say, Judaism or Islam. First of all, we have already been introduced to the concept of Angra Mainyu, the evil spirit that stands on the, you could say, the opposite end of Ahura Mazda, as a kind of spirit of darkness and evil. Doesn't this kind of paint the picture of two gods with opposing qualities? The relationship between Angra Mainyu and Ahura Mazda changed.
Go ahead.
So I was looking up what was happening in Persia during the 1500 BC, like right around the time this was starting to catch, and between that and about 500 BC, which is during the time there was tons and tons of wars between the Elamites and just everybody's always constantly fighting for territory and things like that. Of course, slave trade and various other things going on in the ancient world. And one thing that occurred to me, and the reason I was looking it up, is because one thing that makes heavenly reward religions and apocalyptic religions or apocalypticism very appealing to people is their suffering. They're suffering in this life. It has to be worth something. There's got to be a reason. People are looking for the purpose. Why am I going through this? Well, a lot of people say, well, God is testing you so that if you're just a good person and you put up with the bullshit, you'll go to heaven and it's going to be amazing and gorgeous and pretty and beautiful and you'll be near God and everything's going to be great. And you'll see all the people that you love to have died and all that stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why Christianity was so powerful, especially during the latter stages of the Roman Empire, because there was just it wasn't a good time. There were good things and bad things, but if you were in the lower classes, people started getting very twitchy about that. And so when you need something to cling on to, and it's, yes, there's rule by fear, there is a control aspect to it, but one of the things that convinces them is that reward, is that if you are a warrior for God, you're going to be rewarded with this beautiful thing. But look at the friggin' jihadists who will blow themselves up, literally strap bombs to themselves because they are promised, what is it, 42 virgins? How many virgins in heaven?
Do they actually believe they're going to get like however many virgins when they die? Do they actually believe that though?
The reason that that's like the number is that's kind of like their version of you know how we say like, oh, that's hundreds, right? We don't literally mean like 100, or you know, when you say a dozen, you don't always mean like the number of it. You know what I mean? Like that's not always what it means in our and that's
Okay.
that's what 72 means in Arabic.
Okay, so they don't count much higher.
So
than
it's not like they're literally saying like the number 72. They're basically saying like many.
Right. So they're saying like you're going to get a bunch of them. So
Yeah,
that's your impetus. They have to give you a motivation to fight their wars, to give them money. But I mean, this is why people willingly walk.
Are virgins really that like appealing of a reward? Virgins don't even know how to have sex.
They don't have to know. These guys aren't looking for pleasure. They're not looking for any of the artistic side of it or the sensual side of it. They just want to
that is a stupid fucking reward. I'll tell you what, I had sex with a virgin. I de-virginized one person in my life, and I don't regret it, but it was not a reward. Let me tell you that. It was not a reward of any sort.
Well, in their society, it's a requirement to, well, you have to marry one. But it's like a notch on your belt, right? Like I have been with
virgins. You don't need notches on your belt after you die.
Apparently you do, but to them it's really important. It's like, I have a pure woman. I get all these pure women. I'm worthy of all these pure women. They'll never be pure with anybody else. They'll never get to. And I don't know where they get all these.
Is that really a thing?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the red pill and why?
Yes.
Oh God.
It's just property. It's all it is property transfer and property rights. That's all that it is. Because that's how. So okay, listen. The reason that you wanted people to be virgins and the reason virginity is so prized, right, is because now we know the paternity of the children.
Right.
And that's how land, inheritance, property, bride price, and dowries, right? Clan alliances, right? So you know, I mean, that's the whole Middle East is literally as a clan structure, right? Like that's the reason that they were so focused on virginity, was that reason right there. Because if someone wasn't a virgin, then you have no way of knowing if that is the property going to the right descendant, basically. So they like hyper fixate on it.
So then why is that a reward after you die then? Because there's no property after you die.
Well, they're like idealizing virgins, like, oh, that's like the perfect concept, like the perfect idea. You know what I mean? Like the perfect reward would be, oh, you're basically saying like, oh, you're gonna be rewarded with unlimited versions of like the best thing you can imagine, basically.
The pure
versions.
woman, and Yep.
Men are very easy to manipulate.
Because you can't if you marry a non-virgin, then you don't, like, their thinking is that you don't know if the child that she now bears is your child. So now that inheritance, your inheritance that you're going to give to that child, could be going to some other man or whatever. Like that's their thinking.
It has happened so many times through history that women get pregnant, then get married, and like it has changed. It is all.
It is stupid. Yeah, it is
all the fucking time. Men think that they trust. Oh yeah, she's a virgin. Wink. Yep. And all
Mhm.
the and they I mean they also would get pregnant by other people while they were married because as you said, marriage being a contract, they would have a little side piece and oh god, yeah, it's not even it's
Yeah, Tommy, I don't want to hear about your
disgusting.
experience de-virginizing someone. I really don't want to hear about it.
Oh my god, that is so not true.
Wait,
They don't
have you
believe
guys
in
read
bleed.
Nietzsche at
Huh?
all? Have either of you
No.
guys? Oh, okay.
Heard of what?
Why?
Because there's he has a book. It's one of my favorites called "Thus Spoke Zarathustra," and I mean the very short concept I can explain is it's kind of like it's like satirical in a way where basically like Zarathustra, like Zoroaster comes back, right? And he
Mhm.
sees like what his religion created, and he basically is now a prophet that destroys the religion is the best way to describe it. It's like a commentary, like an anti-Abrahamic commentary where like the concept is that Zarathustra comes back and he gives these like long speeches about like that destroys Abrahamism. And it's like supposed to be ironic, right? Because he kind of started it, he's the origins of it kind of thing.
It's like the Course in Miracles.
Yeah. It's really good though. I'm just like rewatching this is reminding me of how good that critique of it is, or that critique of Abrahamism is.
Nice.
According to different theologies and developments across the centuries and millennia, and sometimes they do indeed seem to be equal in some ways, such as with the so-called Zurvanite movement during the Sasanian Empire, when the two basically became seen as two sons of an even higher divine figure called Zurvan, or Time. On the other hand, in the Gothists themselves, one could interpret it in a very different way, where Ahura Mazda is the one god, and Angra Mainyu is only a personification of some other force that exists in creation, either ontologically or simply in the human psyche. Secondly, and this is even more confusing to some, while Ahura Mazda is the one creator god and the highest lord in reality, on his side, we also find other divine forces or concepts, such as the Amesha Spentas and the Yazadas. The Amesha Spentas, the holy immortals, is a concept that we find already in the Gothists themselves, even though this term isn't used there. And here, they appear as certain, you could say, attributes or manifestations. Perhaps to use philosophical language, you can see them as emanations of Ahura Mazda that are manifested in the world and in human actions in different ways. The scholar Jenny Rose says, quote, "The Gathas introduced the notion that the Ashavan should further certain qualities besides Asha that are associated with promoting the best existence. This leads to the consideration that these may be separate entities, which, along with other abstract forces found in the Gathas, form part of a complex web of interrelationships with Ahura Mazda." So these Amesha Spentas are qualities of Ahura Mazda that should be embodied by the person as part of that goodness and wisdom that make up God and his creation. In the Gathas, there is no set number for these Amesha Spentas, but in later writings they're defined as 7. Asha, or truth, is one of them, as is Spenta Mainyu, which we mentioned earlier. This is translated as beneficent inspiration or beneficent spirit. There is Vohumana, good thought or good purpose. There is Kshatra Vairya, dominion. Armaiti, holy devotion or love. There's Haurvatat, wholeness or perfection. And Ameritat, or immortality. While in the Gathas themselves, these can be read as emanations or aspects of Ahura Mazda in some way, in later periods they often became seen as figures or spirits in themselves. Spenta Mainyu was usually identified outright with Ahura Mazda himself, whereas the rest were often individual divine entities that were also often the object of worship in different ways. Each of them would also be associated with certain aspects of the natural world or other abstract concepts, so that Asha, for instance, was associated with fire, and devotion to this Amesha Spenta Asha was through fire, so to say. This can be a pretty complicated idea and definitely complicates the theology, especially if we're looking for a more strict monotheism in the Abrahamic sense. And furthermore, these Amesha Spentas, and even Ahura Mazda himself, was also seen as part of a wider group of beings called the Yazatas, which literally means those worthy of worship. The Yazadas are divine beings that can be worshipped and also include other popular divine entities.
Wait, they named themselves worthy of worship.
Yes.
That's what it stood for. Worthy of
Yep.
worship.
Well, I
Okay.
mean, it's propaganda, right?
Isn't this just so obvious? Like, I don't even understand. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't understand how it's even controversial to say the things I say or believe the thing I believe. And then I look back and I think, and it's like, you know, even in like the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, saying this kind of stuff was like blasphemous. So it does make sense. It is kind of fresh and new still, you know.
No, people
guess.
just continue to be naive and wanting to put their I don't know. I have friends who still go to the church that I used to go to, and I have friends that are still very, very Christian. And it doesn't even matter what you say. I have a friend who's like, everything you say, I can find a scripture in the Bible for it. And it's like they're just so buried in it that they don't even care what's outside of it.
But like just thinking about like the introduction of these things, and it's like if someone comes up to you and says, "Hi, I am worthy of worship," are you then gonna? It's just like
That needs to be on a t-shirt. Worthy of worship.
worthy of worship. That's actually
That's the
a
one.
good t-shirt. I might do that.
Yeah.
T-shirt.
It's just so obvious that it's like a control mechanism to anybody with like half of a brain, right? So like, what are we even doing here? I don't know.
It's like an idiocracy when they're you know, trying to figure out how to feed the corn or whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
Brondo, it's got electrolytes. And it's just,
Yeah, but Brondo has electrolytes. What are you
It's
talking
like-
about?
Yeah.
What do you mean they're worthy of worship? What do you mean they're not real? Like, it's just, oh my god.
Yep.
I go to church still too, by the way.
Why do you go? You just go to church to cause trouble.
No, he
I go
probably-
to, no.
Why?
My mom goes to church. I'm not just gonna make her go by herself, right?
You go to
So-
church with your mom.
I go to
That's
church
so
with my mom, and then
Wow.
I am friends with because I take like classes on the Bible, right? So
Hmm.
I take them at two different schools. One of them is a Protestant school, and one of them is a mostly Catholic school. So I occasionally go to their thing to talk to the people afterwards, and ask them questions and talk to them about the things I do.
How
So
does that go?
Like
Do they know you're studying them to rip their entire religion apart?
well, they're all praying for me to convert because they're basically like, oh my God, if we can get this racist guy to just stop being racist and love Jesus, all of the racism will stop. That's like honestly how they think. It's just retarded. So like at any given time, there's like 50 Christians praying for me.
Do you ever kind of like give them hope or something? Do you ever kind of like
No.
pretend that you might be on the verge of conversion?
No, I'm really mean about it.
I don't get the sense that he's manipulative. I have something funny. We can save it till the end, but I have something funny that a friend of mine sent me, and this is pertinent to stupid people. That
Nice.
it's a
Okay.
little tiny. It's a not even how long is this? It's a video, but it's 2 minutes long.
Okay.
And
But yeah,
Go ahead.
they all love that I go to church though. They love it. They want me
I
to be there and everything else, and it's just like they know my position on all this stuff, and pretty much all of them have taken like basically this is what happens. They like talk to me, or we go to dinner or lunch or whatever. We have a conversation. They realize I know way more about the subject than them, and that and they just kind of give up, and they just like pray really hard that I'm gonna drop it or something, and it never happens. So I don't know. It's just weird.
I think you should really just fuck with them and like in like a more like long-term way and just start dropping little hints here and there that you might be giving up your heathen ways and thinking just like I'm talking about a really drawn out, like if you're going to go to church anyway, do like a really drawn out process where we're talking like months and months and months of build up, and then you get so close and they're going to get all excited about it and they're going to be praying extra hard, and then you dash their hopes at the last minute.
I walked in on Sunday. I walked in and they were singing a song in Hebrew. I'm not even kidding.
Oh wow!
They were literally, I can't even remember. Hold on, I looked it up. I looked it up on my phone. Hold on, let me Google it again and see what it was. They're literally singing a song in Hebrew.
Did I have is there a way I can tell? Make sure I've got that sound on.
I can see I am pregnant on the screen. Is
Oh
that?
no,
is
it doesn't say pregnant. It says pregnant.
Oh, pregnant. Okay. Do you want to play that real quick?
I do. This
Okay.
made me cry.
All
Laugh. I have
right.
to look at more stuff for this. But speaking of stupid people, there is always going to be an abundance. Can you tell if the audio is on, or do I have to just play it?
You're the one that has to click the box for the audio. I can't help you.
Tell me if it does.
Am I pregnant?
Yes.
Is that there? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Here we go. Here we go.
Am I pregnant? Am I pargant? Am I gregnant? Am I pregnate? Help? Is there a possibility that I'm pegrant? Am I pregnant or am I okay? Could I be pregonate? How do I know if I'm prengan? Can I be pregnant? Can oo get pregante? Can oo bleed while oo are pergert? Can oo down a 20-foot water slide pegnat? How can I get my GF pregnant? What happened when get Perginat? How can a 9-year-old get pregnant? Will my get pragnan? What is the best time to sex to become pregnant? Does anyone know how many teens get pregnant a year? Are these systems of being pregnant?
This is
Girlfriend ain't had periods since she got pregat. Is it possible having sex to a 8 months pregnant? If a woman has starch marks on her... Wait. If a woman has starch masks on her body, does that mean she has been pregnant before?
Yes.
Period, question mark. I circle as normal, but yet I still don't get pregnant. What can I use? Period, question mark. Has anybody got pregnant by just pre-cum while using birth control? Did most you women
Good question.
feel pregnant before find out? I am pregnant last 5 weeks, so can I start sex? Danger ops, pregnant sex. Will it hurt baby top of his head? Me and my boyfriend are trying to get prefnat and haven't took my birth control in 12 days. 38 plus 2 weeks. Pregnant? I think my dog is pregnant. Can I get bringed if he had a condom on? How long can Ugo being pregnant to get an abortion? I think I'm pregnant with my 14th child.
I think this is a teaser
Can
for
you
the next.
burn a Luigi board?
I'm gonna have to find the Luigi board. I've got to look up more on this guy, but is
Alright.
that just this?
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. That was
You're
great.
welcome.
That's funny.
We are so
Yeah,
fucked.
that's who the
Humanity
people
is
religion are.
fucked.
That's what this is for. It's for those guys.
Humanity is fucked.
And think about this. Think
like-
about this. Those people, any one of those people, any one of those people that couldn't figure that out and was writing that in and doing the whole pregnant thing, that person's like twice as smart as like a Bronze Age villager.
None of those people deserve to be parnants.
Oh,
These are
man.
voters. They're making more voters, people. This is why idiocracy is fucking real.
No, we are in Idiocracy. I'm not even. We are in the fucking movie right now. We are in the early stages of Idiocracy,
Oh my god.
and there still remain some smart people in the world. But someday, all the smart people will be extinct, and it'll just be stupid people,
Oh god, as long as I keep
and then
up
it'll be
reading
over.
this. I gotta know, Emily, what zodiac sign are you? I know it doesn't matter to you, but I just
I
wanna
know what he is. He's a
I
Libra.
have no idea. I was gonna say, okay, she knows what I am. I don't know what I am.
He is a Libra sun, and you're an Aries rising, and then you have something as your moon that I forget. Maybe Leo. I think Leo.
Oh.
Actually, wait, I have your astrological chart on my phone. Hang on.
How do you have his astrological? This feels like
I have
have
everyone's astrological chart, Jennifer. I'll have
You
you
have
know.
mine in your phone.
No, I don't have yours in my phone. Libra sun, Aries moon, Scorpio rising. That's what it is. Scorpio rising.
You
Oh,
might
I
as well
did
be
too.
speaking Chinese to me, just so we're fully
Yeah.
aware. I
No,
have
it's
no
fine.
idea.
I
what
just
mean.
it helps my brain. It's fine.
hmm
Scorpio. See, I'm a Scorpio rising as well, but I'm a Capricorn sun, and so as a Libra, it makes sense. Your demeanor is making more sense to me now. Okay, and your interest and passion in how you look at things is making more sense to me. Sorry for speaking Swedish to you. Anyway,
No,
Yeah.
he understands more than he wants you to think. Trendolin, can we watch the? No, we're not watching the fucking Hitler song, Trendolin. No, veto.
maybe on movie night we can.
All right, let's continue.
deities such as Mithra and Anahita, among others. So what's going on here? If there are multiple gods that are worshipped, what role does Ahura Mazda actually play? And can we then actually call this a monotheism? Well, this is pretty complicated, as you can see. I'm usually careful to use terms like monotheism because it can become quite anachronistic to use it in this way and thus project certain expectations from a completely different context onto something that really doesn't fit. For sure, the Azadas were the object of worship for Zoroastrian throughout history, but not everyone wants to call them gods necessarily. Some have referred to them as something akin to angels in the Abrahamic situation.
Angels.
Indeed, the term yazada seems to be used
They
for
can't
a
be
wide array of
polytheistic.
different things, such as
Ergo, angels.
everything from healing plants to frabashis too. It's a concept that we will return to later. So yazadas can mean a broader category.
Why is it so many different belief systems believe in angels, do you think?
Well, divine.
Well, it makes sense because it's like they're like the messengers of God. So the Jewish tradition, basically, like the whole angel concept and demons concept before the Persian period is like very scant, very small. They're just like minor messengers of God. Like there's not all this angel lore. But after contact with the Persian period, I mean these Jews really love angels and demons. Like that's like basically becomes like their favorite genre, I would say.
No, but a lot of like generalized spiritualists like believe in angels too, and channel angel energy and all that.
I mean, I just think it's like the concept of like a divine being that's like an intermediary between like the whatever you think is like the god or the source figure in that lore and the person, right? So it's whatever is that thing that that messenger thing.
Yeah.
Right? So like what's his name? Hermes, things like that. Mercury. Yeah, stuff
I
like
think also it's satisfying the polytheistic needs to convert the polytheistic people and societies. Because if you look at Christianity with all their saints and angels, and you pray to each one for different purposes, exactly the same as a pantheon.
Yeah, it's basically like a way of breaking down out of polytheism into monotheism, right? It's basically like a cope to fix that, like smooth out those edges, basically.
Yep, exactly.
Of things that are worthy of worship, which can include the natural things, but also the Ameshaspentas, and it can also sometimes even include Ahura Mazda himself, although he is usually sort of considered as above or transcendent of all these other categories. Some might perhaps be tempted to use a term like henotheism to describe it, where multiple gods are recognized as existing, but only one god being exalted and worshipped as the sort of highest god in existence. But again, I think this is a sort of anachronistic way of looking at it. It's trying to fit something into our preconceived categories and boxes, whereas this is, it's more complicated than that, right? This is a completely different way of looking at the relationship between these different divine beings and how the cosmos functions in that way. I think while it can be helpful to use these terms and to discuss them like we are now, monotheism or henotheism or whatever you want to have it, I think that at the end of the day, the best way to do this is simply to look at it for what it is, right? We look at this as a unique case in itself. The Zoroastrian theology is unique, right? They have this high god, this somewhat monotheistic idea, right? That Ahura Mazda is the one god, but there are other divine beings too. And it's not like Ahura Mazda is one among the same category of divine beings, and that he is just exalted above the other, as in other henotheisms, perhaps. Ahura Mazda seems to be in a sort of a category of his own completely. He is God with a capital G, whereas the others are divine beings, maybe not even gods. Many people will not even want to call them gods. They call them angels or simply divine beings, or in the case of scholars in many textbooks, they will just use the Western term yazadas, which I think is pretty wise, right? Because it avoids many of these problems that we run into by using terms like gods or deities. So maybe we should do that too, simply call them for what they are, which is yazadas, and Ahura Mazda is his sort of own category. I don't know, it's a complicated situation, but I think that's worth keeping in mind all of these aspects and things when we discuss this topic. Like I said, the yazadas, including the Ameshaspentas, are an integral part of the religion since the earliest period, and significantly nuances our understanding and reminds us not to oversimplify based on our preconceived categories. It should be pointed out also that some have argued that the idea of the yazadas and the Ameshaspentas, at least as separate entities, is a later invention of the religion that is not present in the Gothists themselves, but that, of course, isn't for us to decide here. What we should remember is that the teachings of the religion, including this topic, changed and evolved over time, making it hard to pin it down into a set doctrine, so to say, at least until much later in history. So, in summary, Zoroastrianism, at least in the Avesta scriptures, teaches that there is a cosmic drama. Created reality is a vertical dualism, divided between the two forces. On the one hand, there is Asha, ruled over by the one good god Ahura Mazda and represented by his Ameshaspentas and the various Yasadas. And on the other hand, there is Druj, deception, ruled over by Angra Mainyu and represented by him and the other evil gods or spirit referred to as Devas. The role of the human being is to worship Ahura Mazda and to become an Ashavan, one who follows and spreads Asha through ritual action and adhering to the principles of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. By doing so, we are gradually removing the stain of darkness and evil from the world until we reach Freshukareti, when the world will once again be perfect and where human beings will be resurrected, judged based on their actions, and then spend the rest of eternity in either pain or pleasure. This, in essence, with some clarifications and additions from later institutionalized theology, can be seen as what Jenny Rawls refers to as the Avestan worldview, which lies at the center of Zoroastrianism. Zarathustra, the probable author of the Gathas and the founder of Zoroastrianism, proved to be a very influential figure in the history of religion and philosophy, perhaps one of the most significant in all of history. But during his lifetime, this wasn't necessarily the case at all. We find references in the Gathas to the idea that he was shunned and rejected by people of eastern Iran as he traveled around. But he did find one supporter in the ruler Vishtaspa and his queen Hutausa, who became his patrons and seemed to have adapted his religious reform. Whatever was the case, when other historical records start showing up around a millennium later, after Zarathustra lived, it becomes clear that his writings and teachings had become very widespread across Greater Iran. While we should be careful to think about it as a unified quote-unquote religion as we think of it today, it's clear that some form of developing Zoroastrianism was being practiced by a large swath of the Iranian population and would become central to the great Persian or Iranian empires, such as the Achaemenids, the Parthians, and the Sasanians. So to move on chronologically then, let's talk about the famous Persian Empire, the Achaemenids. Did the Achaemenids practice Zoroastrianism? Well, the short answer is yes. We have to remember, and I hammer this down so much because it is important to remember, that Zoroastrianism was always evolving and changing.
Hey,
and
thanks,
at
Doug.
this relatively
Appreciate it.
early stage, we can't think of Zoroastrianism as a institutionalized religion with clearly delineated doctrines and borders. But when we look at the sources, both internal ones, such as documents or rock inscriptions, as well as outside sources, such as from the Greeks, we can clearly see that the Achaemenid rulers adhere to a version of that Avestan worldview that we mentioned earlier. Many names of royals and officials carry names related to Zoroastrian scriptures and ideas, and the emperors like Darius saw themselves as playing an important role in this cosmic drama of representing the wisdom and authority of Ahura Mazda and Asha on earth against its enemies. In the inscription at Pistun, Darius I makes clear his devotion to the god and what this means. Quote, "By the grace of Ahura Mazda am I king. Ahura Mazda has granted me the kingdom." And, quote, "A great god is Ahura Mazda, who created this excellent thing which is seen, who created happiness for man, who set wisdom and capability down upon King Darius." King Darius says, "By the grace of Ahura Mazda, I am of such a sort. I am a friend of the right. Of wrong, I am not a friend. It is not my wish that the weak should have harm done him by the strong, nor is it my wish that the strong should have harm done him by the weak. The right, that is my desire. To the man who is a follower of the lie, I am no friend." In other words, he's clearly placing himself within the Avestan worldview and ethical framework. And this can be said to be true generally for the Achaemenids. In fact, we see in the Achaemenid period a few of the most prominent features of Zoroastrianism for the first time. So
That's a
what
little
did Zoroastrianism
bit
actually
of-
look like on the ground during this period?
What?
That's a little bit of "I'm awesome because God said so" too.
I feel like we just need to start saying that, like, God said I'm awesome, and so you have to follow me because I'm awesome and I'm worthy of being followed, and blah blah blah. But isn't that? I mean, isn't that kind of just like fundamental to anyone who starts a religion or a cult? They have to, on some level, believe they're worthy of having followers.
Or
And isn't that
even
just manifesting?
in religion, in kingships, in presidents, in anybody who's like, God's on my side and God anointed me and I am the chosen one of God. How do you argue with that? It's something you can't prove or disprove. And so therefore everybody who is on your side is gonna be like, yes, he is the chosen, the whatever kingship of God. And yeah,
This is why
whatever.
people need to be taught to have self-esteem, honestly.
Yeah.
Either you're gonna be either you're gonna be following someone else or you're gonna be followed by other people. Which would you rather? But to be followed by other people, you have to feel worthy of it.
I don't know if you have to feel worthy. Sometimes, I mean, if you're a little narcissistic, you gives a shit. You just already feel that you are.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like narcissists don't have a problem with this because narcissists inherently feel worthy of whatever they want. But like normal people have to be like, oh, I shouldn't put myself in that position or like whatever.
Normal, healthy people who aren't narcissists.
Well, no,
yeah.
but I don't think it's unhealthy for some people to say. I don't think it's unhealthy for anyone to say, honestly, I'm worthy of this, I'm worthy of that. I think it's more unhealthy to say that you're not worthy, honestly.
Well, what I was saying is it's tongue in cheek. It's not about worth. It's about control and power. It's God chose me, so therefore do the things.
Yeah, but I guess I'm saying that in order to like it is real though. It is like in order to start a religion, you have to feel worthy of being followed. Right? You can't start a religion if you don't feel worthy of being followed.
I guess for me, people who are needing to be followed are
I didn't say needing, I said worthy.
Worthy. That would to me make them a little less harmful than the ones I was thinking of.
Well,
to me, if someone's like, I hope I'm worthy of this, or I am worthy of this. Well, maybe that is a little the audacity. I suppose.
Owls Are Cool sent in a power chat. They said a lot of the Native Americans that were forced to or converted on their own, I cooperated a lot of their native gods into saints. South America is a good example. Wouldn't be surprised if many of them are crypto, animists, and pagans. That's the Reaper's origin.
Interesting.
Fascinating. Thanks for the power chat. Appreciate it.
Well, if you're looking for a neat and simple to grasp answer, you won't find it here. In general, it seems that Zoroastrian worship, for the most part, took place outside, rather than in temples or other dedicated buildings. Worship was, according to the Greek historian Herodotus, directed at certain natural elements such as fire, water, and wind, and rituals could be performed on mountaintops or other places in nature. As we saw, Ahura Mazda was still seen as the high god who creates and sustains the universe. But worship on the ground often focused on these other forces in the form of Ameshaspentas or Yazadas, the divine beings worthy of worship and who were associated with natural phenomena. As you probably know, one of the things most strongly associated with Zoroastrianism is a reverence for fire. And this starts to become visible for the first time here in the Achaemenid period, where fire, along with water, seems to have been a particularly strong focus of reverence. Fire, along with running water, was seen as pure and represented the light of Ahura Mazda and Asha, a pure expression of that good aspect of the world that we are all to aim for in our lives. Many, including later Muslim critics, have often called Zoroastrians fire worshippers in a derogatory way, but this thus needs to be clarified and nuanced. The fire is turned to as a symbol and expression of light, of goodness, and by extension of Ahura Mazda. While we don't find any examples of fire temples in this period, which would become so prominent in later periods, there are examples of sacred fires that were kept perpetually burning as an important part of ritual worship in some way. Indeed, on rock carvings, one of the most prominent themes is often a three-part image of the king standing in front of a burning fire altar, and above both of them is the famous figure called the Fravashi, which we'll return to later. In other words, two of the most prominent and famous symbols of Zoroastrianism have
figured
thus
out why I
emerged.
got stuck on worthy.
And this seems to have pointed
why
to
did you get stuck on worthy?
Because for me to be worthy of something, to me intones an earning of it in some way.
Why?
I don't know, because because I would think that if you feel like you deserve something, you don't have to be worthy of it. You just simply deserve it. It is my
Do you have to
birthright.
do something to be worthy of love?
Yeah, I think you do sometimes.
Really?
Mhm.
Jennifer,
What?
you
It is.
believe you have to do something to be worthy of love.
I have to earn
What do
someone's
we have
love.
to that your Christian's coming out now. Your fucking Christian cult upbringing is
No,
coming
no,
out
no,
now.
no.
We don't have to do anything to be worthy of God's love. We don't have to do
I'm not talking
anything
about God's love. I'm talking
well,
about
but God's
another
if
person's love.
we are inherently worthy of God's love, then wouldn't we be inherently worthy of love in general?
I don't
Like
believe in the
you're gonna
whole
put like
inherently
human
worthy of
beings above
God's love
God?
thing. You sound more like a Christian than I do.
No, I don't think I do because Christians don't believe they are inherently worthy of the unconditional love of God. They still believe in hell. I
I
don't
think
believe in hell. I don't think there's
See,
anything we can ever do to be unworthy of God's love.
I guess I'm stuck on unworthy because I do associate that with something that is earned. And as far as a deity's love or God's love or the divine love, that is just the automatic response of creating life. As in, a mother loves their child, they can't not. It is just part of that.
But if we
That
are inherently worthy of that pure unconditional love, then aren't we worthy of it? Do we have to do anything to earn it of human beings? I don't think so.
not of God's love, but
We are
that's not.
worthy of it because we are.
I don't know. I think I'm still stuck on that because I was thinking of other people. I wasn't talking about God's love, but if we're talking about God, like because I was saying, look, God chose me, so therefore I'm your king, and that's what I was thinking. That's kind of what that guy was writing, and that's what I was commenting on. And it's a way to me that sounded like a
You
manipulation.
don't need to do anything to feel worthy of something. Why do you need to do anything to feel worthy of something? You can just be worthy of something. You can just see yourself as someone who is worthy of receiving whatever you want. That's how you manifest things. That's like the foundation of manifesting. You cannot this is why you can't manifest shit sometimes because you don't understand this. The foundation of manifesting is that you have to be a person that is worthy of whatever you want. Not
just
because you did anything, not because you had to pass some test, not because you did something for someone else, but because you are and you are
I'm
worthy of whatever you want.
I'm stuck on the word worthy. It's not working for me.
That's why you're having trouble manifesting shit, Jennifer. That's what you need to work on.
Having or showing the qualities or abilities that merit recognition in a specified way. And so to me, it's either it's there for you or it isn't. I skip the worthy thing and go straight to the directness of it, to the direct channel of it.
You can't get
I don't have
anything
to earn
that you
it.
don't feel you are worthy of. I am
Okay.
worthy of love. I'm worthy of appreciation. I'm worthy of money. I'm worthy of whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't really matter. That is the basis of
Right.
manifestation.
All right.
I'm right. You know I'm right. It's okay. You're gonna think
That's
about
not
you're
what I
gonna
was
you're gonna
talking
think
about, but
you're gonna
okay,
think
we're
about
here
it
now.
and you're gonna come to the conclusion that I'm right.
Listen to this. Have you guys ever
Alright.
so I mentioned this earlier with the fire thing, and I talked about how Rome had one. Do you guys know about this? Do you guys know
No.
about the
The eternal
I
burning
feel
fire
like I
of
do
Rome.
know about that a little bit, but explain.
But where the
the
Olympic
Vestal
fire.
Virgins? Are you familiar with the Vestal Virgins? Like the concept of the Vestal Virgin? So
I
basically,
am. Yep.
so basically, it was in pagan Rome from the very beginning. So like 500, 600, 700 BC, somewhere around there, they had a fire burning all the way up to like 392 or 394 or something like that. Whenever Theodosius took it out, and it was put out by a Christian emperor, and basically for 1,000 years, basically they had this eternal fire burning, and it was meant to symbolize the Roman people, right? And their gods and their like they're just the imagine if you had in your town a fire that had been burning for 1,000 years, and the importance and like how sacred that is, right? Like, oh, my ancestors for 1,000 years have been doing this. And it was like a whole thing where they had these like virgins like taking care of it, from they had to be like chaste for 30 years, and it was like a whole ceremony thing, and Christians just came out and snuffed it out, just put out the fire.
Just rolled on up and went, not
Nope,
anymore.
we're done with that. Like,
Yep.
so this is my thing. I think that this is where like the root of like I understand your issue and your definition of whiteness for like the purpose of the left wing thing.
Yeah.
I do think that this is where like anti-white sentiment comes from, right? Is this concept, this idea of like, oh, what your ancestors did was like not sacred, not holy, it was demonic, and this comes from Christianity. And I think that that's kind of where like the basis for this like anti-white sentiment is that people have is, well, if your people like it started originally with Christians basically being like, oh, your people, you're uncivilized barbarians and things like that, that type of language or whatever.
Fair enough.
Three-part vision of authority in the world, right? The king represents Ahura Mazda in the world, his authority, and the sort of spreading of Asha in the world. The fire also represents divinity and light and goodness and Asha in some way. And then the Fravashi above also has a very significant meaning and symbolism, again, which we'll return to later because it's pretty complicated. Sometimes it's thought to represent Ahura Mazda himself, but this isn't entirely sure. But these three sort of symbols were very important at this time, and particularly the latter two, the fire and the Fravashi, has remained sort of key symbols for the religion till this very day. We are pretty sure that fire served a ritual function already at this time, because there are mentions of something called Atarvaksha, or guardians of fire, as some kind of important functionaries in the religion. In general, it is also in the Achaemenid period that we also see the appearance of the main religious experts of Zoroastrianism, what we could call the Zoroastrian priests, which are called magi. These magi would become very famous across the ancient world, and among other things, they probably show up in the Gospel of Matthew as the three magi or wise men that bring gifts to baby Jesus. It is also from the word magi that we get terms like magic, as these figures became associated outside of Iran with things like astrology and different kinds of
Oh no,
what we
not
would refer
astrology.
to as magic, even if this wasn't always necessarily an accurate association. But the appearance of the magi tell us some important things. We mentioned that, at least in the early Achaemenid period, worship took place outside and was directed at natural forces and the yazadas that were associated with them. Well, these yazadas, or divine beings, really was a key aspect of religious practice in this period. Fire and water were important points of reverence, and these forces were associated with particular divine beings. And the two most popular in this period were Mithra and Anahita. Mithra was associated with the sun, and thus to some degree with fire, even though fire often had symbolized something even higher than any of the individual yazadas, but still, Mithra was important. Anahita was a yazada that was primarily associated with water. The cult of these two divine figures, especially in the later Achaemenid period, became very prominent, and there even started appearing temples dedicated to them, where the magi would work as functionaries in these temples. The Persians had been famous from outside as having a religion that didn't have any images. Ahura Mazda was never depicted, unless the Fravashi was supposed to symbolize him, and other forces were often rather associated, as we said, with natural forces or abstract concepts rather than images or statues and things like this. But in this later period of the Achaemenid Empire, perhaps because of influence from the outside, such as from Greece or Babylon maybe, we do start to see images of the yazadas in these temples too. Not to mention the fact that when the Persian emperors conquered new territories, such as Egypt, they sometimes adopted worship of the local gods in these regions too. Was this a political move? For sure, but it also shows that quote-unquote Zoroastrianism in this period was quite complicated and chaotic, and
I'll be right back.
it didn't really have the defined borders that it would gain much later in history. Even if the rulers and population of Iran generally held to the so-called Avestan worldview, and some of the basic.
Hang on, we got a super power chat from Owls Are Cool. I agree with Amalek. I don't think a lot of people, particularly Native Americans, really understand European people. They don't understand what Christianity has done to Europeans and how that affects all of us. They need to learn the history.
Yeah, I think for a lot of like Native Americans, and I totally understand this worldview. Like if I was Native American, this is probably where I would be at. It would be very hard for me to get to where I'm at. I would just view Christianity as like a proxy for whiteness, is what I would describe, or like so like they view those two things as basically intertwined. Obviously, my whole thing that I do is trying to separate those things. So I get it. You know what I mean? I get why they would view that way. And yeah, it did do that. I mean, like I talk about all the time how Christianity basically like came in and wiped out all the native traditions of Europe. Well, when they were done with Europe, they did it to North America, they did it to South America, they did it to Africa, they did it to Asia, they tried to do it in China and Japan. I mean, if you're familiar with Japanese, Korean, and Chinese history, that's their history with us, is basically us showing up in their countries and trying to enforce the religion on them. Like a good example of this is like China, for example. Okay, China's entire country right now is basically like run like a national socialist ethno state. Okay, and their founding myth, like their entire idea and their founding myth, is this concept of the century of humiliation. And an important part of that, where their whole mythos or their whole concept is like the West came in, bullied us around, and like from that humiliation, they're like rising out of the ashes, and that's how they view themselves.
Huh.
That's how their government officials view themselves. Basically, like that they are they are created out of that. And one of the most important parts of understanding that century of humiliation is the Taiping Rebellion. Okay, the Taiping Rebellion was basically a rebellion that happened in China, where it's the third bloodiest war in all of human history, only behind World War I and World War II. Okay, millions and millions and millions of people died, more than any other war of all the European wars, every other war. The only wars that passed are World War I and World War II. And the entire war was started by a guy who was assisted by outside Christian missionaries from Europe and from America, okay, who claimed to be the brother of Jesus. This is in the 1800s.
No shit.
And he's a fat Chinese guy who failed all of his exams. He was a total shitbag, a total failure. And he basically they did an uprising that I mean, if they would have won, China today would be a Christian nation. Okay, so Asia understands this, right? Like all of the other people in the world understand like how Christianity like basically comes in and just like rips out the traditional culture of places. And if you like read what those people were doing in that rebellion, there's accounts that like that rebellion, they would show up to a town, and the first thing they would do is go to the cemetery, and they would dig up all the graves of all of your ancestors, and they would smash all the shrines to your ancestors, and they would tell them that oh, that's evil, Jesus says that's idolatry, and blah blah blah, all this other stuff. So that's the kind of image people have outside of the West of what Christianity is that it's basically like the religion of the white man. And I totally, like I said, I get why they think that. I just disagree, because I think what happened to them happened to us just 1,000 years earlier.
It's actually mind-blowing when you think about it. It's just like everything is like this. Everything is just stupid. Every single thing.
Yeah.
It's not been one smart thing that's happened in the history of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I there is like a silver lining here, and that like I try to talk about this as much as I can. Like we had like, okay, if we just understand where we're at, we are basically at the third act of some kind of crazy sci-fi fantasy fucked up novel that was like written by like a Jewish guy or something. Like that's like this is like a fucked up dystopian novel. We're like underneath a system that's like a 2,000-year-old lie system that's like been used to control us and like oppress not just our ancestors, and then it used our ancestors to oppress other people's ancestors. Like it just, the whole system is just like a fucked up situation, right? But what's nice is once you like just learn about that and realize that, the silver lining is like we have all of the narrative leverage you could possibly imagine to like get out of that, right? Like this is the type of stuff that like an ethnogenesis myth is formed out of. You know, your people were oppressed for 2,000 years by a foreign god. You know what I mean? Like this is the type of leverage that you can use.
We need to form our own religion, basically.
Yeah. Well, in my view, what a religion is it's the myth that the people who won the war tell their children to justify all the fucked up shit they did to win. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, that's how religions begin. Okay, so in my view, you just need a bunch of people who are just like totally like clear-headed, no superstition, who are like ready to get the job done and know what they need to do to win. And then they win, and then you can get weird. You can do the religion thing, and then you can get weird. Then you can do whatever you want. Make your myth, make it about whatever you fucking want. It doesn't matter. I don't care. But I just think that that's kind of how like you have to go about it. No myth was formed from a loss outside of Christianity.
All right.
We
Thank
went
you. More
as
black
God
pilling.
said so.
Good.
Basics of the Avestan teachings. This is still true to some degree. So then, did the Achaemenids practice Zoroastrianism? Again, the short answer is yes, but as I've hopefully shown, there's a significant amount of nuance and complexity to be added to that answer if we want to understand the situation more properly. But with that said, this is of course a very important period for the wider development of Zoroastrianism. However, the Yazatas or Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu were supposed to be interpreted in the Gathas and the older text. At this point, it becomes pretty clear that they are viewed as akin to what we could call gods or spirits in a theological sense. And by this time, it appears that the very strong dualistic worldview had been firmly established, as we can see from outside sources writing about the religion of the Persians. Even Aristotle himself describes the Zoroastrian dualistic doctrines. According to Diogenes Laertius in the Lives of the Philosophers, he says, quote, Aristotle, in the first book of his work on philosophy, says that the Magi are more ancient than the Chaldeans, and that they have two principles, a good spirit and an evil spirit. The former is called Zeus and Ahura Mazda, the latter Hades and Arimaneus. And Zoroastrianism continued to play a role even after the fall of the Achaemenids to Alexander the Great and during the later Parthian Empire, which lasted between 247 BC to around 224 AD. During the later Sasanian Empire, this period, the Parthians, was often seen as one where the practice and devotion of Zoroastrianism was relatively abandoned or that it stagnated until they, so the Sasanians, sort of revived it again and brought it back to its former glory. But looking at the historical record, this doesn't seem entirely true. The Parthian period did see a lot of contact with cultures outside Iran, not least the Hellenic world as well as India, and religious practice, including Zoroastrianism, was impacted by this environment in different ways. For example, the increased contact with religious traditions from Greece and things like Buddhism in India might be one of the reasons that we seem to see an increase in things like images and icons of the Yazatas as a focus of worship. Both the Greeks and the Indians loved to depict their deities with images of different sorts, whereas the earlier Zoroastrian practice had been without images and a focus on worshipping outside.
This hit me in the center of my dark little nerd heart. Travis, time for Karlyn and Jennifer to become the first Bene Gesserit.
What does that mean?
Those are the high priestess women who control everything.
You haven't seen Dune yet?
The Dune universe.
I didn't like Dune. I tried to like Dune. I really did. I just didn't like it at all. So I don't remember any of the names of things or whatever because there's too many.
Dune is so important. It literally tells this. It's like a hidden version telling the story of what I try to tell.
But
it's
the
explaining how
it's
explaining how a small zealous group of people over multiple generations can use prophecy deception to manipulate geopolitics. That's the entire plot.
But there are too many names of things and it's confusing.
None of it matters. All that you need to know is that it's
there was a prophecy seeded hundreds of years ago on Dune for the primitive people who may or may not be Arabs. In fact, I think they were supposed to be, weren't they not, Emily? Arabs that fled from Earth like thousands of years.
I
think like they were supposed to be sort of the Middle Eastern kind of thing. And they found the Bene Gesserit witches started seeding this prophecy of the Kwisatz Haderach, which was the Messiah or the Savior that would save them from oppression. And that's what Lady Jessica uses to push her son Paul up as this being.
It's just such a fucking stupid story. Like he gets some magical powers and then has to ride a worm or something. Like what the fuck?
It's a lot more than that. But
that's the thing. This is the thing. Is like, okay, so remember he goes and the first thing is like, oh, he's fulfilling this prophecy, and all the people are like, oh, they're all like excited and shocked or whatever, and then the one woman shows up with like the spike, the worm spike, and she's like, oh, he knows what that is. If he knows what that is, that's fulfilling another prophecy, right?
Well, the way he knew how to wear the still suit.
And I was just gonna say, then he wore the suit and he knew what to do. And the black chick, the doctor, was like, oh, it's like you knew how to wear it naturally. And she instantly remembers that's one of
not the new
prophecies.
Dune. You gotta watch the one with Max.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No, Kyle MacLachlan is weird and a bad actor.
Whatever, I don't care.
I
don't care. New Dune or old Dune. Doesn't matter. I was gonna say the book is way better, but
read the book. Yeah.
The book is like
the-
8,000 pages long.
This is the
Oh,
thing,
it's so
that
good.
that whole concept, right? That is what Jesus is. That is exactly what Jesus is. Riding on a donkey. Why does he ride a donkey? Because it's mentioned in the Torah. Why
Because
does
it's
he do?
humble.
Yeah, every single part of the Jesus story is a reconstructed version of the Torah, of the Old Testament,
Yep.
or
And then
of the Hebrew Bible prophecies, or some mention or some callback to either the Torah, like some version, something in the Hebrew Bible. It's all a callback to that.
literally the author was talking about fanaticism, but his main message was everybody calls out for leadership and send us the Messiah and send us a leader and send us a savior, but be careful of who you ask for, because when they show up you may not like it. And that is the whole story of the Atreides bloodline, because they become the oppressors eventually.
All right, maybe I'll try to watch Dune again or
Based.
something. Maybe it doesn't suck
What's
that
the
badly.
new one? It's if you can't stand the
You know what? The thing of it is, though, like I cannot stand Zendaya, and so I don't like her
I hate her.
either.
Yeah, I
I
hate
hate
her.
her.
I hate her
Yeah.
too, but like I'm
He ruined
Zendaya.
Connie. He absolutely
You're
ruined Connie. I don't know
I'm
what's
literally
wrong with me, but
Zendaya,
something.
dude. When
How are
she
you,
does the thing and she
Zendaya?
screams, "You're this is how the prophecy controls you." Like
That wasn't even in the book, though. Come on,
I know.
supported
Dude,
him.
this is the thing. Hold on. This is the thing.
She was his Mary Magdalene.
I know. Listen, they lay it on in the newest movies way harder than the book, of like the viewpoint that I have of the whole thing, like the way, like the whole prophecy deception thing. And then the number 3, the third movie, is going to be called Dune Messiah.
That's
I
because
think
that's
that
the book
it's
is called Doom Messiah.
right,
Yeah.
but it's really laying it on thick with like they're like almost like pre-programming people to like be expecting the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, like the AI Jesus. You saw the Joe Rogan thing? Did you guys see that? Wait,
No.
Colin, did you see the Joe
What?
Rogan clip? Okay, hold on. I gotta let
What
my dog
clip?
out. I
Okay.
gotta let my dog. Hold on, I gotta let my dog out. You guys keep playing the thing, and then when I come back, I'll show you this clip of Joe Rogan talking about what I've been talking about for years.
Okay.
The AI Jesus thing.
Okay. Let me get this super chat. Cool channel. Glad I found you. Thank you. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Welcome.
And even though, as we saw, we do seem to find a few examples of images in the later Achaemenid period, this seems to flourish even more in the Parthian age. Very significantly, it is also during the Parthian period that we see the emergence of fire temples.
Yeah, owls are cool. Send another power chat. I apologize. I didn't see it pop up. Let me see. This coming year, I'm going to try my best to reach out to normies. I would not recommend that. And bring awareness to what Christianity really is all about and how we can move forward. In other words, I knew something wasn't right, but Adam Green really woke me up to Judaism. Listen, I understand the inclination to want to try to reach out and teach people. Just understand that you are fighting an uphill battle and that most people aren't going to want to hear it. And they're going to think you're crazy, and you're going to develop a reputation, and just understand what you're getting into. It's not really as easy as just like, let's just wake up the Christians. The Christians don't want to be woken up.
It's hard to get through the brainwashing. And honestly, unless they're trying to do it on their own, they're not going to have an aha moment.
Yeah.
It's just, they're so into it. This is the way. It's hard. If anybody's on the fence, you might be able to just give them a nudge, but not if you're not unless, like, if they're going to default to Christ is King every time.
But that was actually one of the cool things about like the CQ Twitter spaces was like they actually were deconverting.
I was just gonna say, you guys are both
Yeah.
wrong. Well, I'm deconverting these motherfuckers, and I'm pulling it away from them. I'm ripping the Bible out of their hands. I'm saying no more fucking fairy tales. We have real things to deal with in the real world and real problems, and we are done with the fairy tales. I'm ripping it out of their hands. Look, I get all the things you guys are saying, like, oh, it's difficult. Oh, it's not for everybody. Oh, you're gonna just like push them in their ways. All that stuff. I totally get it. But there are novel ways that we can like just take the scientific method and apply that to deconverting. Okay. And it's never really been done before in the way that I've been doing it, in the way like I've demonstrated in the CQ radio thing. And if we just like keep iterating on that, and then like mass produce it, we actually can deconvert these people. It is actually not that difficult. The problem is you have to like learn the lore and internally critique it from within those people's point of view. So you have to basically first identify why they're Christian, right? Like what, and then second, what kind of Christian are they, right? And then third, you have to just find the thing that like thread and just unravel that thread, whatever it may be. Now, yes, obviously there's going to be people who are like, I saw Jesus and now he's real. Okay, you're obviously not going to convert those people, right? But those people are like lost and like that they're
It's
hopeless. Like that's not really the audience you're looking for. You're looking for people who are like, you know, middling intelligence or higher, who are like just being tricked and just like having a bunch of false assumptions. And it's very easy to deconvert those. There's a channel called like Deconstruction Zone, and I'm going to be putting out some things eventually here soon. And like, look, guys, like you can definitely deconvert people. It's actually not that hard. I promise.
I don't
So
know.
this is oh, go
when
ahead, Jennifer.
Sorry. When people think that their actual immortal soul is on the line, it's really difficult to get through to them.
Yeah, and all you gotta do is show them where that concept came from, like that their immortal soul is gonna burn in hell forever. It came from a medieval poem.
I
Yeah,
have
well-
seen him do this, to be fair. Like he is actually able to deconvert people.
Maybe it's just something
I
that
look
I
forward
can
to
do
learn
uniquely,
that.
but if that's true, then I just need to like figure out how to teach other people how to do it, which is fine. But I actually think that everybody could figure out how to do this. I think that was kind of what was cool about the CQ radio, was everyone was like together, like throwing nails at the chalk, like throwing what's the term, like everyone was testing out like different things and the different things that would work, and we'd be like, oh, if you just change that like this, like it might work better, and things like that is actually when we really hit critical mass with it, when everyone's kind of trying their own thing. That's how I view it.
And then
I
it
don't
all
think it's
fell
like
apart.
well, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Well,
So you're gonna do for Christianity what Carl is trying to do with communism.
I was actually just thinking that. Like it's like exactly the same thing. Like I'm
sort
like
of, yeah.
I'm like, I need to teach people to be like me and to think like me so they can go out and do what I do, but not have it not be me.
Set forth your minions upon the world.
Yep.
Well, I think with AI, like I could literally just like teach people how to I could arm people with their own AI that they could have as their own program, and I could just teach people how to use it very simply.
That's a good idea, actually.
And all it does is like helps them argue with these people. Like I could literally make myself into an AI, give it to people as like salespeople, and then those people are armed, and all they have to do is like use it themselves, and like it's like a self-replicating solution, like a sales solution to the problem.
You should have just like uploaded like the recordings of the CQ spaces into AI. Just load
have-
them all in.
I
You
have all of them. Yeah, I have every single one of them, and I have
Awesome.
them into an AI, and I scan it all the time, and I would listen to it, and I would say like, hey, like where was I wrong, and like, can you give me like a better like. One of the things I learned from it was always say you're being too like general, you're being too broad, like tighten your language here, like be more specific and stuff like that. And as time went on, I became better at those arguments because of it. But yeah, I was doing that while we were doing it, as I was uploading all of the episodes to an AI and cataloging them.
Wow. No, B Don, we are not atheists. Well, I can't speak for Amalek. I haven't asked him that, but I am not, and I don't think.
No,
and
I'm not an
Carlyn is not.
atheist.
I'm agnostic. I think that basically all the stuff that people think is like spiritual or supernatural can be explained scientifically, and that we don't really have any understanding of like the divine, really. But that's just my perspective.
Are agnostics more like there's something, I don't know what it is?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Tashka. Sometimes large complexes dedicated to fire, and magi or priests that would tend to the fire, as well as make offerings to it, including animal sacrifice during the very important Yasna liturgy. So in the Parthian period, aside from individual practices, the religious cult was focused on two kinds of sacred buildings: the fire temples and the individual temples dedicated to Yazadas, which would often include images, as we saw. We should also mention that during the Parthian period, an attempt seems to have been made to write down and preserve the old scriptures of the Avesta, which had been scattered, and the oral tradition taking a hit with the invasion of Alexander, of course. This collection and writing down of scripture and its exegesis is attributed to the reign of Valachsh the Ashkanian, or Vologases, who ruled between 51 to 78 AD. But this process of canonizing Zoroastrian scriptures and creating something close to an quote-unquote orthodoxy, clearly defining the religion and its principles, really started most properly to happen under the Sasanians, who ruled Iran between around 224 to 652 AD. It was during the Sasanian dynasty that Zoroastrianism reached the peak of its power and prestige in a way, because it is here that the religious experts and kings put a huge emphasis on establishing a strong Zoroastrian religion that can stand up against its rivals in the region and serve as a solid foundation for the empire. To fully grasp what is happening here, we need to consider the context. By the time the Sasanians came to power, some significant things had happened in the Middle East which shaped its religious and philosophical landscape. Not least, of course, the birth and increasing popularity of religions like Christianity and Manichaeism, religions that are heavily scriptural in nature and with a very clear delimited set of doctrines and practices and orthodoxy based on those scriptures. Although this is relative, of course, since Christianity at this time was also incredibly diverse with many different schools and with different scriptures and interpretations of scriptures. But in general, the Zoroastrians and the Sasanians were faced with an enemy and with other religions that were very heavily scriptural and with a very sort of clear, again, relatively orthodoxy and beliefs based on those scriptures. And especially after the events of the 4th century, with Christianity suddenly being the state religion of the Roman Empire, who of course were the Sasanians' perhaps foremost geopolitical enemy, this of course had a major impact on the Zoroastrian self-image. Being challenged intellectually by these scriptural religions, Zoroastrians realized that they needed to clearly establish a set canon of scripture and to collect those scriptures in writing, which they did. The religious experts and priests of the religion, the Magi, were also given an increasingly high status at this time. In this period, the high-ranking religious clergy were often known as a mobed. The fire temples became wealthy institutions, and the religious clergy were very close to the king and his court, thus playing a role in politics too.
Isn't that
This
something?
can be compared to the increasingly important role of bishops in
Priests
Why
always
didn't
get
there?
rich. Yeah,
Oh, the
because
priests
the
always
priesthood
make
always
money?
gets rich every time. There's your noble class, your priesthood. They're all playing with money, and in a lot of especially European societies, it was the priesthood or the church that ran the countries under threat. Not under threat, sorry. The kings were under threat of the churches. They were far more powerful because the Catholic Church was collecting money from multiple nations. It wasn't just one country. They had a lot to throw. It's like a bunch of little IT companies dealing with frickin' Elon Musk. And he at any point yeah, it's all about money. It's all about money and power. Don't tell me it isn't, even though they're like, we think about poverty. Bullshit. There's so many brotherhoods, and I saw this on another documentary I watched about the little friars, and I love friars. I love a good friar. But the little friars that they would
friars are the ones with the dumb haircuts, right?
Yeah. They would either be bald or they'd have the bald patch here.
Why do they have a bald patch?
As a sign of humility, as far as I understand. Kind of like a yarmulke.
Circumcised hair, dude. That's what it was.
Oh, ew.
It's like a yarmulke, except it's not. It's
It's like a reverse
they shave their hair in this stupid haircut because it's a yarmulke. Okay.
Kind of. It's in service to God. It's in humility to God. It's to also to butt vanity. So they didn't have any vanity because they knew it looked dumb. But it was a symbol of I'm a priest. You can spot me in a crowd, and I have no vanity. I'm humble before God. Blah 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 blah. But every single time, a little shoot, and I've just lost the word for what they were called. Cloisters or nuns, the brotherhood or whatever, the little place where they would go. They're not the church, but like we're
monastery.
Thank you, monastery. Goddamn, yeah, the monastery. They grew vegetables. They made beer. They did all kinds of things, and they eventually became so wealthy that some of them felt terrible about it, and they would actually donate everything back to the church, go back to a static level of poverty or a zero level of poverty, and start all over again. But they kept becoming too successful. Mostly it was because of the beer and herbs and things that they would grow. Like they actually had a really good business model that the township loved, but they always gave their money to the church. And then the church, of course, is like, yes, thank you for honoring your poverty vow. Keep sending the money.
You know what? This weird thing happened to me a couple months ago where all of a sudden in my Instagram, and mostly on my Instagram, I look at like cooking videos and I look at like really fancy leather bags and things like that. And that's pretty much it. But for some reason, I started getting served these videos of like young people who were becoming nuns or something like that, and they were like
heard about
recording their journey to becoming nuns or whatever, and then there were like monks involved as well. And so apparently they all like, they all live in the same place and do stuff and they have adventures they put on the internet or whatever. And I was like, this is the weirdest algorithm thing ever. Why am I getting these videos?
Why is this happening in my
Yeah.
feed?
I don't want to know about nuns. Can you
do, though.
imagine like giving
Hey,
your
I
life
know.
to God at that age though? That's crazy. And they look so normal.
My mom considered that. She had thought about doing that because she was raised Catholic, went to all Catholic schools, went to a Catholic nursing school before my dad saved her and brought her to Colorado. But she was considering it because she and to this day she has a lot of reverence and respect for nuns and loves to read the stories of what some of them did and some of it, because we have Mother Cabrini. Is that the Mother Cabrini shrine is within view of my window right here. I can see it in the foothills, and a lot of Catholics will do pilgrimages to see her shrine, and she has this giant like 12-foot statue or something. And but she was they're all about the poor and all this other stuff, but she was quite a local figure. But the mothers and that kind of thing, or she's just fascinated with it. I think it's very sweet. And why not reverence powerful women who did the best they could within the framework of which they were given?
The Roman Empire. Some of the highest ranking people of the clergy, the high priest, or Mobad and Mobad, the priest of priests, became famous in their own right as very powerful men with significant power, such as Kerdir and Adurbad. Connected to all of this, there was also a concerted effort to more clearly delineate what the Zoroastrian orthodoxy was. As we have seen, Zoroastrianism historically, while retaining some basic Avestan features at their core, could be quite varied in different ways. But here in this period, we see a strong conscious effort of getting rid of heterodoxy and perceived heresy. For instance, the Sasanians authorized what basically amounts to a kind of iconoclasm. All images of the Azadas that were found in temples around the region were destroyed and instead were replaced by fire altars. So the temples to the Azadas were kept intact, but the images themselves were replaced by fires. Fire and fire temples became the main center and focus of worship to the Sasanians, with the symbolic function of the fire we talked about before being kept in mind, of course. Similarly, there had appeared at this time certain interpretations of Zoroastrian doctrine that were deemed heretical and were thus also counteracted. This includes what is known as Zurvanism, where the concept of Zurvan, or time, was seen as the highest principle in reality.
Really?
Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu in this system
Don't do
being two equal beings being born from Zurvan.
It's the highest
sort of
principle, which
sons
means
of
it's
Zurvan.
real.
There was also Mazdakism, which some have
Uh-huh.
compared to a kind
leaving
of
it alone.
quasi-communist social movement within the religion.
There was
Now,
communism.
both of these movements,
Oh,
Zurvanism
no.
and Mazdakism, are so fascinating. They probably deserve episodes of their own where you can focus more particularly on them. I have hopes to do those episodes.
I thought he said communism and masochism.
I mean,
That's not what he said, though.
but it's not that different, really.
Probably not.
So it's in the future, but in any case, there were clear sort of attempts, clear efforts at this time to get rid of all these what were seen as heretical cults, heretical interpretations of the religion, and thereby, through getting rid of these heterodox views, establish a sort of unified, true Zoroastrianism. And aside from the collecting and canonization of the sacred Avestan scripture, this was also done through new original texts and scriptures that clarify the doctrines and interpretations of Zoroastrianism, sort of according to this orthodoxy, so to say. These new scriptures were all written in the language known as Middle Persian. So this is a further development of the old language. So it'll probably be good to put up on the screen a kind of a chronology of language. So the Persian language is divided into these different periods. We have Old Avestan, which is the oldest. Again, we said this is between maybe 1500 to 1000 BC. This is the very earliest Zoroastrian scriptures, like the Gathas, for instance, are written in this language. Then we have the Young Avestan, so from 1000 to 500 BC. Also, some of the most significant scriptures, the Avestan scripture, are in this period and written in this evolution of the language. Then from 500, from the Achaemenid period, we have what is known as Old Persian, again a further development of this language, which is then replaced in this period in the ADs, what is known as Middle Persian, for the sort of Sasanian period. And then from usually a good dividing point here is Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, which was written, I think, in the 11th century. That's the start of New Persian, which is basically the language that is still spoken, the official Persian in Iran today, right? It comes from that. So that is the chronology of the different languages. And at this point, we're talking about new scriptures written during the Sasanian Empire, which would have been written in Middle Persian. This includes the very important works called the Bundahishan and the Denkard, although at least part of these books may originate in the early Islamic period. Much of the details and interpretations that we know about cosmology and the great cosmic drama that we talked about earlier is greatly dependent on these Middle Persian texts in particular, thus serving as key sources for Zoroastrian doctrine despite being such late compositions. In other words, even though the religion had technically existed for thousands of years before this, it is in this period that it becomes more clearly defined, codified, and institutionalized, probably as a classic example of defining oneself in opposition to the other. Because at this time, again, we see the emergence and prominence of many of these other religions, both inside and outside Iran, such as Christianity, often also in the case of Christianity, as the very religion of the political enemy. And so there's an effort to sort of define more clearly what Zoroastrianism is supposed to be in opposition to the other, right? These other movements and religions. And indeed, while the level of tolerance varied from ruler to ruler, this is also a period when we often see the oppression of religious minorities, such as Christians, Buddhists, and Hindus, on part of the Zoroastrian clergy and royalty. Critique was aimed at these other religions as, quote, deaf, blind, and deceived by the Devas or Ariman or Angramainyu. And we see cases where the temples and idols of other religious groups, such as Buddhists, Hindus, and others, were destroyed. For example, the famous high priest Kerdir that we mentioned earlier says in an inscription that, quote, while Ariman and the Devas were punished and rebuked, and the teachings of Ariman and the Devas departed from the empire and were abandoned. And Jews, Shramans, Brahmins, Nazareans, Christians, Maktak, and Zandiks in the empire were smitten, and destruction of idols and scattering of the stores of the Devas and God's seats and nests were abandoned. And in kingdom after kingdom and place after place, many divine services in magnificence and many Varahan fires were established, and many magi became happy and prosperous, and many fires and magi were imperially installed. But we should, of course, remember that this attitude wasn't true across the board. Many rulers of the Sasanian Empire were quite tolerant of different groups living in their realms too. And looking more broadly, the Persian rulers, especially those of the Achaemenid dynasty, such as Cyrus the Great, were generally known across the board as tolerant, merciful, and wise. So we should see these things more as signs of the times rather than as an inherent aspect of the religion itself. Religions, as we know, are always what its practitioners make them out to be, and thus change and evolve depending on how it is performed in different times and places, no one form being more true than any other, at least from a neutral academic standpoint. Whatever the case, this dominance of Zoroastrianism was to become significantly altered with one of the most dramatic events of late antiquity or early Middle Ages, namely, of course, the Arab conquests at the advent of Islam.
I love that music. It's so pretty.
Is that it?
No.
No. It's just being extra dramatic.
It's so I love
Like
this music.
intermission.
So much.
It's like in 10 Commandments
It
where
was
they did the
with the
intermission.
sudden invasions of the Arab armies beginning in the 630s, which were very successful, partly because of the weakened Sasanian army after long periods of war with the Byzantines, that the landscape of Greater Iran and Central Asia was to change forever. But this topic is often over-sensationalized too, and from both fronts. On the one hand, you have people saying that the Muslims completely decimated the Zoroastrian population, forcing them to convert or die and destroying nearly all the fire temples and Zoroastrian buildings. On the other hand, you have people saying that the Arab conquests and Islamic takeover were completely without any such violence or destruction at all.
Okay, so Amalek, how does this align with, like, you know, I don't know, like the Jews creating Islam and all that stuff as well? How does this all go together?
What do you mean? Like, what about?
I don't
like,
know. Go ahead.
I don't know. Like, okay, so like the way to understand this whole period is the Persian Empire, like the Zoroastrian Empire and the Roman Empire, are in total chaos. And these it's like a time of religious creation and blending and all this other stuff. So that's where it comes out of. And like the way that Islam spawns out of Christianity is essentially a group of like Christianity was extremely diverse in its beliefs. Like there were people who believed that Jesus was purely divine. There was people who believed he was both fully man and fully God. And there was people that believed he was just like a man or like a prophet, right? There was all sorts of varying degrees of beliefs. And the Trinity concept that we now know of, like from, the Council of Nicaea and things like that, that Trinitarian concept was forming around the Eastern Mediterranean, and Islam came out of a tradition that was basically like anti-Trinitarian Christianity. Like that's the best way to describe it. They were essentially like ethnically Jewish Christians who believed that doctrine of the Trinity was essentially paganism. Was their arguments, which is the same arguments that the Jewish rabbis make and things like that. But yeah, like look. I don't. It's like a whole thing. Like we can get into it, but as far as like the origins of Islam go, but like Islam was not started by like an illiterate like bandit rapist or whatever. Like that's not true. It was started by like a priest class of Jewish Christians, and like yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's the Quran is basically like a retelling of the Torah in such a way that it makes the people who are following it fulfill what's called like what is called like Ishmael in the Bible. It fulfills the role of Ishmael is essentially what's going on. And the best way to describe that is, I mean, look at what they're doing with Muslims, right? They call it, for example, they call Europeans or white people Esau, right? Or
Right.
Edom, okay? And they call Ishmael the broom of Edom, that they will sweep away Esau. So what? And they say this because they say that the Muslims will basically like outbreed the Christian, like outbreed Esau is essentially what they're saying. Ishmael will outbreed Esau is basically their kind of like go-to, like that's kind of how they describe it. And if you just look at the history between Christianity and Islam, and how they fought against each other, that is exactly what it was, right? Like basically Islam was like a horde of like the hordes of people, like the masses of people who were like outbreeding the Christians and then just keep pushing them back, pushing them out of the middle, pushing them out of Syria, then pushing them out of Anatolia, then pushing them, like the Ottoman Empire literally went all the way to the gates of Vienna, you know what I mean? And then like the whole way around like Spain and the whole thing that happens there in Andalusia.
No, they're doing it over in Michigan now.
Well, exactly. So
Yeah.
now, today, the rabbis and the Christians and the Muslims all look at today and they see like, Muslims all over Europe and things like that. And they see like, oh, look, like they understand this broom of Ishmael concept, right? So basically like in the eschatology, like the end times lore for Muslims, they believe that for Muhammad, that Muslims basically believe Muhammad is going to come back, and when Muhammad comes back, he's going to come back with Jesus. Like they come back together, Jesus and Muhammad, like hand in hand, that they come back together. And yeah, like they like.
Well, and wasn't Muhammad? I mean, he was a warlord. He was a horrible, horrible person. But wasn't he? Didn't he say, like, take Christianity and say, I can do it better, redid it into sort of a retranslation, and then replaced himself as the Jesus figure, but kept Jesus relevant because there had to be a transition period. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't think that like a Muhammad guy, like I think Muhammad might have existed, but not in the way that like the story goes at all. Almost all.
Oh,
the story,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Everything
think
gets glorified. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that because look, the Quran is a highly sophisticated literary genre. It's like a what I call like an Arabian retelling of the Hebrew Bible is the best way I would describe it, I guess. And so it's like got a lot of like like what is Arabic now that we know, right? Like it's got a lot of those influences in it. So yeah, that's where it
Well,
comes from.
and as far as this all relates to Zoroastrianism, I think the pivotal and key thing is the doomsday stuff. The one god, one devil, a host of angels, and there's a battle struggle, and it's the doomsdayism as well. And I think that that's what influenced Judaism, and of course then Christianity and Islam and many other places you'll find these thoughts just because it's so permeating these days. But I think that's where what the biggest contribution of Zoroastrianism is, if I'm understanding it all correctly, and how it all ties in.
Yeah, I think the end times is very. Yeah, I think the end times is the most important thing from the Zoroastrian side. I would say because
Cool.
in my view, like all of the religions right now are basically they have a lore that they're all following, and it's just the script of our geopolitics. Like if you understand the script and you understand the story, the whole Gog and Magog, the trampling of the Holy Land, like all these end times prophecy lore shit that all this stuff that they have, and you just like read it and understand it, and then you also understand and know what's going on in geopolitics today, you can see, oh, they're kind of just like playing this out. So it's pretty shitty because I mean I don't know if you pay attention to geopolitics, but like we're on like the precipice of World War III, or maybe we're even in World War III. You know, maybe we'll look back in 50 years and be like, oh wow, World War III started when Russia invaded Ukraine. However it is, right? That's why I would say like it does matter. Like the Zoroastrian stuff and understanding how that stuff influenced the later traditions does matter.
I almost kind of wonder if, like, from a spiritual perspective, were all these dumbass religions just like kind of like planted here to test us to see if we can overcome the dumbass religions? I don't
It
know.
was the reptilians.
It was the reptilians that
The
they just
reptilians.
want to fuck us up.
Yep, they're here to dominate and have total control. A little tongue in cheek there, Amalek. Don't panic. So, but yes, they're running everything, and they want negativity. They feed off of negative energy. They feed off of all the war. And
You're saying the Jews are the reptilians?
No, I didn't say the Jews are reptilians. The reptilians are the reptilians. They influence the places of power and the religion of power. It's just a working theory. Not saying I totally believe that. I just kind of sort of do.
You know how we have like the concept of like an intelligence agency today, right? Like everyone, like you know what I mean when I say like an intelligence agency, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like there's Mossad, right? MI6, CIA, stuff like that. In my view, the ancient priest classes were just like a very early version of like of that. They were the government's version of one of these like 3-letter organizations of like a military of like an intelligence organization. So it wasn't just like it was literally for the purpose of like going and spying on other lands as well as like psyoping your own people in the same way that those things do today. And that's what they were. Okay. So the reason they were paid a bunch of money and the reason they're so powerful is because they were like the intelligence wing of the ancient world. That's how I describe them. Right. So yes, they're keepers of knowledge, but that's because obviously they're your intelligence, right? Like they have to have all the books and know the history and all this other, and like, that's how they did it. So that's how they set up these like psyop. I would call it psyop. That's basically what they are.
Yeah, then the knowledge is power. They had the power. They can manipulate the people with the knowledge who didn't have the knowledge, and they could then go forth with their own agendas, which feeds the reptilians.
I want to do a show on the reptilians. I feel like we did before, but we could do it better.
We can do more reptilians.
I want more reptilian. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see.
That'd be a good idea. Owls Are Cool sent a super chat. Oh, I wanted to ask Amalek last time about the gender ideology of, I believe, the Bronze Agem. You were talking about circumcision and how it's impacted generations after generation. Where did the weird gender stuff come from, essentially?
I think all the weird gender stuff is just like I don't know. I think are they talking about like the weird gender stuff in like the Jewish traditions. Like I don't know.
I guess so.
My view of it is this is like it's obvious that you're gonna have like weird gender stuff in the ancient world. Like think about how they were back then. Like I use this as an example when I talked about it, but like they were obsessed with spit too. Like I can't read like any ancient primary sources without them like any like ancient like or like magical or whatever text, however you want to describe
Which is
them.
also represented in Dune.
Yeah, that's true. Like you can't read any of that stuff without them just like talking about like spit or like weird things. So just like gender bending as a concept makes total sense. I don't think it's like a weird idea. Like I don't know.
The priest class. Remember they were talking. There was a thing about how there was a priest class that could pray to a certain deity, and they could switch genders for just temporarily to fulfill certain duties.
Yeah, and like to kind of go
Yeah.
off of like the intelligence thing, like the Asian version of this and the and parts of Middle Eastern history, like the eunuch was this thing as well, right? Like the eunuchs ran China for a long time, and that's like basically like gender bending, weird, whatever, right? So I just think that like a lot of that stuff, like a lot of those traditions, it's just like kind of a a natural evolution of ideas or whatever, I guess you could say, like a bronze age old ideas. That's why I don't think like the solution is that we go back to those things. Like
It's undercover belly dancers. The gender. No. The old ideas are the old ideas for a reason. We need to move forward with something else.
Every single like basically group on Earth has weird gender stuff in their religion from the Bronze and Iron Age, and I think that is a product of being in like the Bronze and Iron Age when you're living in 100 people villages, and like look, people were probably really weird like as far as sexuality goes, right? Like let's just call it what it is. Like people were trying and doing weird stuff, I imagine, when you only got 100 people in a village, and I mean you guys can just imagine, right? So like it's not surprising that people got weird with those kinds of ideas.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of experimentation.
Well,
Of course,
fire.
neither of these two extremes are true. Generally, after the conquest, the Zoroastrians were considered among the so-called people of the book, the Ahl al-Kitab, and were obliged to pay the jizya tax, just like Christians, Jews, and other groups. This meant that they fell under the category of dhimmi, and they and their sacred places, including temples, were technically protected under Islamic law. In theory, as long as you pay the tax, you were exempt from military service and were equal to Muslims in society. Of course, in actual practice and reality, things were often quite different. But it is true that generally during the Umayyad Caliphate, the Zoroastrian population continued to flourish. And those that had been in power previously were kept in their positions, only now, of course, under the higher authority of the caliph. Forced conversions didn't really happen, as the Umayyads had a policy of basically not wanting any non-Arabs to convert to Islam for various reasons. But with the advent of the Abbasid dynasty, things started to change a little bit. Especially from the rule of the Caliph al-Mutawakkil and forward, more strict rules regarding the status of dhimmis were enforced in the empire. So, in this period, several fire temples were destroyed or converted to mosques and many other such things.
Hold on real quick.
And even though the
hang
treatment
on.
of dhimmis waxed and waned...
This is okay, this is kind of an important concept too. So one thing about Islam, and it's like this is what I would say, like Christianity was intended to be like a Noahide religion, right? For Gentiles, for the Jews, basically is what it was. For what could be called like proto God-fearers or God-fearers is what they were called. So like Gentiles who worship Yahweh is basically what's going on there. That's what Christianity was like meant to do, was for the Hellenized Jews and the God-fearers, Gentiles, to all like worship Judaism together in their own universal version that was like separated from Judaism. Like that was the intent. And in Islam, it is like the 3.0 or the 2.0 Noahide version, okay? And it is way better at the intended goals, right? So basically what happened is like, Islam developed, centuries later out of Christianity in a way where it looked back and saw, oh, what is the problem with Christianity? Oh, they have this Trinity thing. Well, there's just like no way you could like fit Trinity into Islam, right? And then they have all the things like, oh, people are like, they're worshiping the concept of Jesus, right? Like they're using images of Jesus, right? Like on the cross, and they see that as idolatry. So what do they do in Islam? You can't even show Muhammad. right?
Right.
And I could just go down the line of all of these things where
And
what I
what
would,
is his head made out of?
what is it? It's like says wool or whatever.
No, it's fire. They always picture Muhammad with a
Oh
head of
yeah,
fire.
with that,
Which
yeah,
it harkens back to the fire cult, if I may say so. If I can,
yeah,
if I can touch things together there.
yeah, maybe. So all that stuff, like all the all the pieces of Islam basically are just like a more perfected version of Noahidism, and the place where this is just like so obviously clear is the way that Islam like destroys its host countries like culture or whatever, right? So like in Christianity, what ends up happening is Christianity spreads throughout Europe by basically like combining with the local pagan traditions, right? Like I mean, we could just go through and talk for hours about how that happened,
Oh
right?
yeah, and we have many times on this
Yeah,
show.
yeah, right. So, but what does Islam do?
Right.
It absolutely rips out the roots of whatever was there before, right? It takes down the statues, it destroys the statue, it like destroys all idol worship, so that to the point where like there's no way that like in any Islamic country basically that there could be ever be some sort of like return or revival to old ways. And that's not an accident. That is a feature of Islam because they looked at Christianity and they saw like, oh, look at it. It's spreading through Europe and like, ew, it's picking up all this yucky pagan stuff. So that they made Islam's version much more strict and much more, I mean, you could just say like Noahide compliant to be able to do what it does. So it's like
That's
a better,
crazy.
it's like a
Well, they
better
blew-
theological machine is how I would describe it. It's like a more efficient one.
It's more warlike, and they're more conquest oriented, more conquerors. But I mean, they just, what was it? Just a decade ago, they blew up all those beautiful sculptures, and was it Turkey or someplace where they all the ancient alien guys were like pulling the skin off their faces. And I cried when I saw it. They just all sat there in this ancient temple, sticking dynamite into these statues and just blowing it to rubble.
Yeah, like
Eliminating
Afghanistan used to be like
history.
a Buddhist country, and there, if you like Google the giant Buddhist statues, they used to have all these crazy, huge Buddhist statues all over Afghanistan, and there's tons of it. There's tons of examples of this, but basically, like Islam just destroys it.
Yeah. There, nothing happened before we did. Period.
Yeah,
Yep.
like the way that Christians act like that, when Christians always try to claim like, oh, European civilization would be nothing without us. Islam is like that on like giga steroids times 1,000. Islam claims that like Muhammad was a Muslim. I'm sorry, that Abraham was a Muslim and shit. Like it basically like backdates and steals everybody's culture. Like that's the whole premise of it. And the whole thing is just like a retelling of the Hebrew Bible from the point of view of Ishmael, which is itself stupid. But
From Ishmael? Really? I've never read the Quran, so I thought it was Muhammad writing it.
no. I mean, that's what they say. I'm saying so. Ishmael is like a character in the Hebrew Bible,
Right.
and that archetype, the Ishmael archetype, that is the archetype that the Muslims embody in their Quran. It's like a retelling of the Hebrew Bible through the point of view of the archetype of Ishmael. Is the way I would.
Whoa. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's not like Ishmael literally retelling that. That's not what the Quran is. I'm saying it's like
Usurping the idea of and
yeah, like we have the birthright, the covenant, basically.
Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah.
Yes. So Islam is a more.
I remember the
you know what I mean?
stories.
Yeah. So you see what I mean, though? Like
Yep.
Islam is like a more perfect version of Christianity, right? When it comes to that kind of stuff.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Because the
Swapping of the
point and the
birthright.
point of Esau, like so Christians, the point that like the archetype that Christians are supposed to play is the archetype of Esau. And what is the archetype of Esau? Well, it's the guy who runs out and hunts and does all the work, and he's red-faced and he's a big hairy, but like a butcher guy, like a warrior guy. And what does he do? He gets his birthright stolen by Jacob, the archetype of the trickster, right?
Yeah.
So when they say Ishmael is the broom of Esau, they literally mean that the Muslims are going to push us out of our birthright, and that the Jews are basically going to yoink it from them. That's what they believe.
Such
Great.
a mess.
And then
Great.
the Muslims version is like, in the end, we win. Like
they're very, very slowly working that out. And I'm watching this carefully, where they're going and spreading and blocking off whole cities and neighborhoods and things. And it is happening. It's just a slow little spread. And there's even a video I saw, it was a viral video of a Muslim lady who was pulled over by the police, and she says, "Your laws don't have anything to do with me. I'm Sharia. Your
Yeah,
laws don't
I mean-
apply to me." Like, people believe that in America. The American laws don't apply to you. They're Sharia. Like, this is happening in real time, people. It's not even funny.
This is what I was saying earlier, though, about like feeling worthy of something. It's like, do you think Muslims question whether or not they're worthy of doing whatever the fuck they want?
That's a
No,
good
they
point.
don't. Do you think that
Yeah.
they question whether or not their ideas are going to win? No, they don't. Same with the Jews. The Jews
Yeah.
don't question whether or not they're worthy. They just are worthy because they were born worthy.
I understand. Yeah. You kind of low key blew my mind with that earlier, because it is something I've been pondering lately. We'll have to talk later.
I know a thing or two. You might be the fucking high witch, but I know my shit when it comes to energy. Okay.
I believe you.
And changed depending on who was in power and in what period. Groups like Zoroastrians were to some degree always second-class citizens and had to withstand oppression from time to time. For these reasons, many people did start converting to Islam, making the Zoroastrian population dwindle more and more. But they did remain a significant presence for a long time, until at least the invasion of the Mongol armies. And this decimated much of the Zoroastrian world that remained at that time. So we should recognize that history is less black and white than we are sometimes taught. Zoroastrians remained in the region and were allowed to continue worshipping for the most part, but at the same time, there is no denying that there were periods of oppression and general second-class treatment of the Zoroastrians under the many of the Islamic dynasties. So much so, at least, that many chose to either convert to Islam or to move elsewhere, basically. Most of them going to India, and would then make up the Parsi community, which still stands today. But many Zoroastrians remained in Iran too, and went through periods of persecution on the Safavids, as well as more positive periods, such as during the late 19th to 20th centuries. The Parsis in India are very significant. They seem to have established themselves at a very early date. Some say that the Parsis sort of fled or emigrated from Iran sometime in the 8th or 9th centuries, and then they have established themselves as a very prominent Zoroastrian community all the way until today. Now, because they have been in India over all these centuries, they, of course, developed unique practices because of that region and because of that sort of, at least in periods, lack of contact with their Zoroastrian kin in Iran. And today, actually, the Parsis are the majority community. It's the largest community of Zoroastrians in the world. In some periods, they've also been seen, even by the Iranian Zoroastrians, as a kind of the guardians of the true faith. And many priests from Iran sort of traveled to India to learn from the Parsis, because they had preserved many of these scriptures and traditions to a larger degree than had been possible in Iran, right? So the Parsis are really, really important, and they kind of really deserve an episode of their own too. I make my mention here about them more brief than it perhaps should be, but keep in mind the Parsis are very important for this story, as they have been the most, in terms of population, the most significant, the most populous Zoroastrian community for centuries at this point. So now that we have a basic understanding of the teachings and cosmology of Zoroastrianism, as well as a good understanding of the basic chronology, so where it originated and how it has developed over the different periods and empires and so on across history, now we can sort of start to dive into the actual practices of Zoroastrianism. So what does Zoroastrianism look like to a regular person? How is this religion practiced on a day-to-day basis? Well, we should first look at one of the most long-lasting aspects of Zoroastrianism, which is the liturgy known as the yasna. We mentioned this briefly in the beginning of the episode. This is a rather complex ritual liturgy performed by priests daily. This is always in the morning and can take several hours. The yasna liturgy takes place in the fire temple and involves the preparation of the sacred drink known as hauma, and in ancient times at least also involved animal sacrifice. Today, this latter aspect is represented only by the clarified butter that is consumed with bread. The ritual also involves things like water and a focus on purity, much like the rest of Zoroastrianism. But one of the main aspects of the liturgy involves reciting the hymns and scriptures that make up the yasna, in terms of the yasna as a collection of liturgical scriptures. So the yasna is a ritual that is performed daily by the priest, but the word yasna is also used for the recitations, the scriptures that is recited during this ritual. The yasna in total consists of 72 sections with varying types of styles. It is, for example, in this yasna collection that we find the 5 Gathas, those earliest writings attributed to Zarathustra, as well as other hymns, the yashts, and other early Zoroastrian compositions, many of which were probably preserved because of its use in this daily yasna liturgy. So we probably wouldn't have I shouldn't say probably, but it's possible that we wouldn't have the Gathas, that they would have survived if they weren't used in this very important ritual. That is probably a key reason why they were preserved for so long. After all these sections are recited with the actions associated with them, the liturgy ends with a, quote, offering to the waters. This ritual has been very important for the Zoroastrian worldview. It is believed that this is one of the most effective and important ways that we humans strengthen Asha and help it become victorious over the darkness in the world. As for regular lay people, Zoroastrianism involves daily prayers. To be precise, there are 5 daily prayers to be performed over the course of the day. The scholar Mary Boyce describes the prayer like this, quote, "First, the believer prepares himself by washing the dust from face, hands, and feet. Then, untying the sacred cord, he stands with it held in both hands before him, upright in the presence of his Maker, his eyes on the
People
symbol
love
of
to be told
righteousness,
what to do,
fire.
don't they?
Yep.
Then he
they
prays
do.
to Ahura Mazda, execrates Angra Mainyu,
There
flicking
are
the ends.
Most of the personality types that exist need to have someone in a leadership position. So people in leadership positions take a lot of shit, but what oftentimes people don't understand, this is like what I used to do with the organizational psychology stuff. You need to have someone in that position, because if you don't have someone in that position, no one's going to know what to do. Because
Right.
most people are literally just waiting around to be told what to do on some level. And it's only like 25% of the population even have like the capability to step into that position to be able to say, you do this, you do that. And people think it's narcissism, but it's just like,
Oh, you're being
really
bossy.
different-
Well, everybody
Yeah.
was sitting around picking their butts. I mean, we need to get this going here. Let's move
Yeah.
on.
Followers need someone to lead them. It's just the way it goes. And like people who are not natural leaders can learn to be leaders. Like you can learn how to practice the skill set and stuff like that. But yeah.
I'll usually wait out of respect to see if the people who are supposed to be in charge actually take charge if something happens, and if they start floundering, that's when I'll step up and I'll go, okay, look, we got this, and this. Let's go. And I love being in that position. I don't want to always be there. I'll step right back when I'm done with it. But I'm interested in how they had 5 prayers a day, and it reminds me of the Muslim call to prayer. And now how they made that like in that, I was thinking, I'm like, oh, that sounds like it translated over, and they've got their own little ceremony with it. But did you see the videos of Dearborn where they have the Muslim call to prayer?
Yeah, that was
Dearborn?
crazy.
I would be so mad if I was just a normal person living in that city right now. Oof.
I'm never going to Michigan again. I'll tell you that. Michigan is like,
Why are they all going to Michigan? It seems like so not like they're used to the desert. Why are they? Is it because they want the cold? Because they're sick of the heat? Why Michigan?
it's probably
I'm so
just
confused.
because like a community ended up getting set up there. Like a bunch of people, like it started with some people and then they kept bringing over their families and shit like that. And all of a sudden it became
a
the
thing.
place to go.
So interesting. I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
The same
can't.
thing with the Somalis in Minneapolis.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah.
Basically, like those areas were depopulated because of migrations from America and within America. If you catch my drift, right?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Certain groups of populations migrated to places, and then other groups of populations decided to get up and leave. So the other population that then came there turned them into a shithole. And then that group of population, they had to leave because there's no grocery stores or anything there. So there's like literally nothing there except for basically a whole shithole, like Detroit or previously Dearborn. So what ends up happening is the people that are living there left, they end up basically inviting them in because they pragmatically have no other reason. They have no way of, like, how do you get a taxes and all, how do you fix a town? So to them, it was like the solution to that.
Oh wow.
That's
Mhm.
how. So that's how the story went down. Is that it
Yeah.
basically was like part of that the good old story of like white flight to suburbia. That's basically how Dearborn got created. Because there was
That's
a vacuum
great.
of people there. There was like nobody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I get it. I saw another video of like a grocery store there where it was just everybody was in burqas, and
So
it
crazy.
was, and I
Yeah.
went, what?
Look, this is what I'll say
Not
about
even
that.
America.
I wanna say something because like I think this is like very important, and I just saw Nick say this earlier, and my friend Dubernat, he wrote an article about this, and like, so this is like a hot topic lately, and like this is used to be like an obvious point, but I just need to make it. The problem with like Islam, I don't want Muslims here. I don't think that I literally think that their religion should be banned from the planet, right? So not even here, but I think that we should like go over there and stop them from being Muslims, okay? Like that's how bad I hate their religion. However, a lot of the like, anti-Muslim, like anti-Islam stuff is like just Zionist drivel. Like they're basically trying to get us
That's
to
what I
hate
said.
Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to get us to hate Muslims because Zionists want us to invade their countries for them, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I
And
got that too.
so like look, the number of Muslims in America is very, very small. The change and the shittiness and like the cultural change and like I'm just gonna be honest, like the biological changing of the makeup of what an American is, like the degree to which that's being changed is actually being changed by like Christian Latinos and Africans and Indians and things like that. The number of like Muslims that are doing this, like like is it, like from the Middle East or Somalia or anything, like I said, don't get me wrong, I want zero, okay? But like they're using this issue to basically like help Zionism, and we need to always be careful whenever we're like critiquing or getting mad about like Dearborn or Muslims or anything like that, that we don't like help Zionism, because this is their whole thing, is that they want the right wing to see Dearborn, Michigan and seethe so hard that they want to invade Iraq. Okay, like that's
Oh
basically the
boy.
whole ploy. And I want to, and just like a caveat, this is the total opposite in Europe. I totally acknowledge that. If you're a European listening to that and you are like smashing your keyboard, I
Yeah,
absolutely am not talking about you. Your entire
yeah,
continent is being overrun by Muslims, and I am not
yep.
talking about you. I'm just talking about like American issues in America. And the truth is, like, to what degree our culture has been like radically changed. It's not Muslims, it is Latinos and Caribbean people and people from Africa. Like, it's Christians. Like 60% of illegal migrant, or 60% of migrants. I think what 60% of illegal migrants
They're Catholics.
no, it's 60% of legal migrants are Christian, and
Mhm.
then 80% of illegal migrants are Christian.
Yeah.
Right. So this is to sit here and complain about Islam is it's just like a false view to way of looking. And like I said, the biggest thing is that like Zionists are using this like Muslim hatred for their own means. Like it's basically like
I don't
Muslims
hate
are who
them.
you're
I
allowed to
just
be racist against. It's ridiculous. Like I
it
want to
is
be racist. Like, whatever. Yeah.
it is against my nature to hate any person or religion. However, I do not appreciate the lack of acceptance for our own customs. And as much as we would go somewhere and respectfully, do as the Romans do, I feel like it should go both ways. And I feel like we've lost that a lot. And I'm not going to get on a soapbox about it. That's really all I wanted to say. I just kind of, the way that we're allowing ourselves to get rolled over is alarming to me. And this is how takeovers happen, whether it's Christian, Catholic, or Muslim. This is how things like that start. It's very small, and people go, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine." And then it's not fine one day, and then before you know it, you're all speaking another language.
Yeah,
Or
what would Jesus do?
I don't know,
What would
honestly.
Jesus do? He
Well,
obviously wouldn't fight back.
but it's the conservative
Yeah,
boomers that have allowed all this shit because they sat back
yeah.
and did nothing. And even
Well,
now, I mean, you can put evidence in their faces and they still do nothing but complain and meme on Twitter and think that that's going to fix anything.
And conversely, the left is like everybody has to be accepting of everybody else, and if you don't, you're a bigot and all that other
That's not
stuff.
what the left says, though. That's not what the left says, and
Well-
all the left is doing.
Well, no, I mean like the populist message, not the stuff you know about. The populist message is we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We just need to accept everybody. Nobody is illegal. That kind of thing is what I mean.
That's not the majority of the left anymore, Jennifer. The majority of
No.
the left is the DSA now.
I again didn't say majority of the left. It's the populist message that is getting airtime.
No, but it's not though. It's
Okay.
really not. That's not even the message that's getting airtime.
Okay.
Anyway.
Of the cord contemptuously as he does so, and reties the cord while still praying. The whole observance takes only a few minutes, but its regular repetition is a religious exercise of the highest value, constituting both a steady discipline and a regular avowal of the fundamental tenets of the faith. As you can see, fire plays an important role not just in the temple, but for the individual practitioners as well. And the cord that she mentioned is also a very important part of Zoroastrian practice. This is known as a kushti, and it's a cord that is worn around the waist by all invested or initiated Zoroastrians. This initiation ceremony that Zoroastrians go through usually takes place for kids at age 15. The kushti is made of 72 threads, representing the 72 sections of the yasna liturgy that I mentioned earlier.
Like
Another key
72
aspect of
virgins.
Zoroastrian practice is the seasonal festivals that take place annually. The main ones are 7 in number, 6 of them collectively being known as Gahanbars. And they are, and excuse the pronunciation here, Maidoi Zaramaya, mid-spring, Maivior Shema, midsummer, Paitishahia, bringing in the corn, Ayathrima, the homecoming, Maiviairia, midwinter, and Hamaspath Medaya, which has unknown meaning. As you can tell, with the exception of the last one, all these festivals celebrate the different seasons and things like harvest. They also represent the 6 Amesha Spentas, aside from the 7th, Spenta Mainu, which is identical to Ahura Mazda, as we said before. The 6th of the one mentioned, the last one, is not directly connected to the calendar year, but is rather a celebration of the so-called Fravashis. So finally then, we have to tackle this topic. What is a Fravashi? Honestly, this is one of the more complex and difficult concepts in this religious system because it's kind of unlike anything we recognize from other religions. The Fravashi is like the higher self of a human being. So before we are born, we sort of live with Ahura Mazda in his world as Fravashis, almost like divine being ourselves. But when we are born, our soul becomes separated from the Fravashi and travels down to this world to gain experience and knowledge and to help strengthen Asha, for example. But we are still in contact, so to say, with our Fravashi, our higher self, and once we die, we will reunite with it. And the Fravashis became an important part of the religion, often being revered or even worshipped in themselves.
Doesn't that remind you of the
Fravashis
soul?
Ashavans, or important people and
The core
ancestors of the past. And that perhaps most common symbol for Zoroastrianism, the winged being that we find in so many ancient inscriptions and thumbnails for YouTube videos, is, at least according to most, a Fravashi. Some have believed that it is a depiction of Ahura Mazda, but this seems unlikely given the fact that Ahura Mazda is very rarely depicted in image. So the jury seems to be out still on exactly what this symbol is, and it might have symbolized different things in different periods, for example, but mostly it is known as a Fravashi. In any case, the 7th yearly festival stands apart from the others in some way. It doesn't represent a single Amesha Spenta, but represents fire itself, that force which, at least symbolically, lies at the core of all the Amesha Spentas, being their, quote, pervasive life force. This festival of fire, which also often serves as the Iranian New Year, is known as Nowruz, literally meaning new day. Nowruz takes place every year on the spring equinox and appears to have been, in a way, the most important and popular of the festivals. Indeed, even though Zoroastrianism hasn't been the majority religion in Iran for many centuries, the celebration of Nowruz is still very prevalent among its people, both in the region and in diaspora communities, and for different religious denominations in the region too. There are elaborate ways of practicing this festival and still serves as an important day for Iranian and Central Asian people around the world. Lastly, another famous aspect of Zoroastrian practice that we should mention involves their burial customs. If you remember when we talked about fire, we said that this natural element is seen as pure and thus representing light and goodness. And there has been a huge emphasis on not polluting things like fire and water in any way. For this reason, things like cremation of dead bodies has been completely out of the question for Zoroastrians across history, as that would, of course, pollute the pure fire with dead human flesh. And death, of course, being one of the main symbols and results of druj and angramainyu, of evil and this decay in the world. Instead, the Zoroastrian custom has been what is known as a sky burial. There often existed dedicated places known as dakma, or towers of silence. These were often located far away from humans and pure things like fire and water, and dead bodies would be taken here and would be left out in the open for vultures to consume the carcass. When this process was over, the bones were sometimes collected and then put in a sort of proper grave. The reasoning for this, as we said, is that dead human bodies are impure. They are a part of the druj aspect of the world, and one can thus not let that come into contact with pure things such as water, fire, and even earth, making any other kind of burial kind of inappropriate. This practice and the Towers of Silence has indeed become one of the most famous aspects of Zoroastrianism to the wider public. With that said, it's also true that many Zoroastrians, especially in diaspora communities, will bury their dead in cemeteries. And you know, there's probably an interesting discussion or video to be made about the internal conversations about those kinds of practices, how that is justified, how one adapts to new situations in diaspora communities, for example. But you know, just putting that out there, that many of these customs that were maybe prevalent in ancient times aren't always necessarily practiced by Zoroastrians today. So that is a general overview of Zoroastrianism, its teachings, history, and practices. As you can tell, this is a deep and complex religion that really needs a lot more time to cover fully or properly, but I hope that this has given you a better understanding of the tradition and maybe inspired you to do further research on your own.
All right. Well, I don't know. Kind of seems Jewish to me, if I'm being honest about it.
It's definitely started the ball rolling for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
They
I love virgins.
one of the figures or whatever, the guy that I was talking about earlier, that's Cyrus the Great, that you know, he's in the Bible, they call him the Messiah and all this other stuff. That's what they call Trump all the time. They call him a Cyrus-like figure, a non-Jewish person who's going to, you know, rebuild the temple type of thing. That they constantly they minted coins in Israel with Trump on them and Cyrus the Great, calling him Cyrus the Great. So
They did.
that's
They
how
made
view
Trump coins in Israel. They did, really?
they worship him over there. Yeah, they love him.
Ghastly. Oh, bless.
And think about
Netanyahu's about to come to the White House for the 5th time in a year.
hell
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I understand like having diplomatic relationships and things, but a coin.
Well,
Oh.
there's like no other world leader that's even been to the White House like a couple of times, and Netanyahu needs to come to the White House 5 times in Trump's first
He's got to get
year.
his laundry done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, God, no.
Jennifer,
No,
you know
that's
that one?
serious, Jennifer. Yeah.
I
Jennifer.
don't.
Tell her.
I don't know.
Bibi says that he like when he comes to the White House, they has him do their laundry. So he like brings his dirty laundry with him from Israel to America, and
Where's
has the White House do
correlation?
his laundry.
Okay, so who said that, and are there receipts?
Bibi has said it multiple times.
Mhm.
Bibi himself has said, "Oh, ghastly."
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Trump is cucked.
and then Trump pulls out his chair for him.
Yeah.
Oh.
The whole thing.
Mhm.
But it's look, as things are like you know, one of the things that's interesting about what you do, Karlyn, with all the like going over this leftist stuff, is they have this big plan for 2028,
Oh yeah.
and I think that's basically when like this whole thing is going to get heated up to like the levels like that we can't even right now even contemplate. We're gonna look back at this time and we're gonna be like, oh wow, like
The
look
good
how
old
peaceful
days.
it was. Yeah, like we could like sit around and talk about Zoroastrianism, and it's just gonna be like not good. It's just not good because that is what like the end times prophecies that these guys have kind of clearly states is that, like, essentially everyone will be spontaneously attacking each other, which is basically describing like what civil unrest is, right? It's almost like these people, like, even though they're not like, Christians or like they're not like religious or anything like that, they're also helping fulfill the prophecies in their own way. It's like it's almost like their ultimate fulfillment of the prophecies, right? Where they believe that they will not have won until they have like a one world like commune, like everywhere has to be communist for it to be communist, right? Like that's basically how they view it, right? So just by that nature, you must basically that's literally impossible. Okay, so you basically have to believe in something that's never happening, like a utopian end world end time scenario, like that's never happening.
Yep.
So
Jennifer, you better have your homestead done by then, so we can all come and like camp out at your homestead. That's gonna be the plan, basically.
Yeah, we're gonna have the communist survival site at Jennifer's homestead. Yeah, so I'll have the chickens. I want ducks and turkeys and guinea fowl. We'll have a fishing pond. We'll have an orchard, greenhouse, big garden. Lots of places.
2 years to figure it out. That's it.
I intend to
Well, I've heard it's starting
be a
next year, and then it's like the next 2 years is when it's all coming together to fruition.
Yeah, like, what did you just say?
I'm gonna just be like a warlord. And
you're gonna be a warlord?
Yeah, I can convince a bunch of idiots to follow me. Really easy. I could wield retard power like no one's business if I had to.
That also needs to be.
You ever see like what's that like Walking Dead or anything like that? What's that guy with the baseball bat? That dude, when he has the what's his name?
Negan.
Yeah, that's me. 2035. Need more ammo.
He was an evil bastard. He was awful. I hope you're not going to be a meanie. Don't torture people.
I'll be nice to the right people. Look. If he didn't torture those people, people would get out of line. Okay, so you'd rather have him do it than someone that's actually like a bad guy. Okay.
I don't care if Amlek's torturing people as long as he leaves me alone.
Dude, I could get one of those baseball bats, dude. I would be so good at that, like doing the whole monologue he does, and he's like, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo."
Oh, oh, when he killed Glenn. Oh, it's so bad. It was so awful. Oh my god. Oh. So bad. No, but well, you may or may not be welcome in the Jennifer commune. I don't know about you.
He's a great person to have around.
You can be our bulldog.
If you don't have somebody like me, your guys are just gonna get conquered by some other group.
I was just thinking about that. You're not wrong.
Yeah. He's like security. He's like the mom.
Yeah, we need a warlord. Okay, all right.
What's fucked up is that's like the genesis of government.
I know, right?
Right.
And it starts all over again.
Yeah, that's literally how like government. Like, what were the Romans other than just like the ancient gang that just like the biggest gang?
What have the Romans ever done for us?
They crawled out of like on a post-apocalyptic Bronze Age.
My husband always says, no matter what happens, the barbarians always win.
Yeah, so be a barbarian.
Yeah, well, he's like, well, this is why he makes booze. He's like, and also you never kill the bartender.
There you go.
We'll grow some pot too, just to,
All right. Well, this was a really blackpilling episode where we realized that everyone in the world is stupid and that basically we need
a Bronze Age version of Iranian like fire religion. Yes.
Yep.
What? Hey guys, what dictates our geopolitics? Oh, an Iranian fire religion. Got it.
Followed by a chaser of a redneck Jewish god.
Great work. The entire world is faking gay. Everything is made up. Most people are stupid. They just need someone to follow. Amalek's gonna be a warlord. I'm
almost assuredly gonna get killed before anything even happens. They're gonna come to my house and pick me up and scoop me up, and I'm not even gonna get a chance to have any fun.
Oh, I hope not. I hope not.
I think that's the whole purpose of Twitter right now. Is they're just letting this whole thing like pop off because they know that they are just gonna rug pull the whole thing. That's what I think is gonna happen.
Great.
They're gonna make yeah.
I made a coaster again. It's a spiral this time.
Hey, there you go, Jennifer. Well done. I fucked up my knitting and I had to undo it all. So you're ahead of me. Yeah.
Oh,
it's all good. It doesn't matter.
I packed all my fucking yarn and I found like one skein and I'm like, okay, good.
Is that a yarmulke? What is that?
It is a coaster.
Okay, it's a yarmulke. You could use
Are
that.
you fucking silly? Really?
I'm
Are you
just saying,
serious?
like dual purpose. Like, look, I'm just saying you could use it if you were.
It's
No,
too
if I-
small.
I'm a female. I have to wear the whole thingy. I
Oh,
have to wear
that's
the
true.
whole. Yeah. I don't have it. Well, I do, but I'm not going to take that down. So,
All right, go ahead.
announcements, if I may.
Hey, real quick, Jennifer, just so
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if I'm going to be around for movie night this week because I have secret things to. I'm getting on an airplane on Friday, and I'm not coming back till Monday. And I could potentially be around on Sunday, but I might also have secret things to do. I might also have stuff to do. Okay, so
What
I'm
does
just letting
that
you
mean? I
know.
need to swap my movie out because this one I know you want to see.
Oh no, what?
I'm doing Dogma.
Ah, fuck! I gotta come to movie night then. I love that movie.
I can swap it out for Indiana Jones.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'll make it work. I can. I think it'll be okay. I think it'll
Just-
be fine.
Well, Indiana Jones won the poll because I said, "Would you guys like me to do Indiana Jones?" Or because I was going to do Dogma next Sunday, and I said, "Then the Sunday after that, I have about 3 or 4 movies I can do in a poll, or Indiana Jones." And everybody voted for Indiana Jones, which I'm pretty sure was a pity vote. But I love you guys. Thank
If
you.
you want to watch Indiana Jones, watch Indiana Jones.
And then we
I
can
just
do
didn't- I
Dogma
just
the
wa-
following
Yeah,
weekend
that's
when
fine.
you know you can be there.
That's fine because I made you
Okay.
watch Heathers, and so fine, whatever.
I'm glad I saw it. It was a weird fucking
Good
ass
movie.
movie, but I'm glad I saw it. I loved the actors. So we will then do Indiana Jones this coming Sunday. For movie night, we'll do Dogma the following Sunday. I just need to move those around because you know me and my anal list and keeping track of everything. And as far as MacBee's Monday movie night, he is doing a whole bunch of like vintage Doctor Who. So last night he did Terror of the Autons, and next Monday he's doing Remembrance of the Daleks, and he is finding the old Doctor Who episodes and playing them for like a couple at a time or something. It's like 2 hours of Doctor Who. Really cool, very cool stuff. So highly recommend check it out. And that is all I have. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, but I
That's
do
all we
want to
got.
tell you. Guess who I went to
What?
lunch with today? You'll
Who?
appreciate this. Sherry, our Bigfoot specialist.
Oh, the Bigfoot lady. She's
Yeah,
rad. Sherry rules.
She does. She does. We actually haven't talked since we did that episode, and we've been trying to get together for lunch, but I've been kind of swampied. And finally, we went out for lunch today, and she was like, "Please tell Karlyn hello for me." That was so much
Aw.
fun. So,
I'm like,
hello,
do you believe in
Sherry.
Bigfoot?
No.
You don't believe in Bigfoot?
I think
No.
Amalek is a bit
Really?
too much of a pragmatist for this kind of fun stuff.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Not
Whatever.
even that.
Whatever. You're not.
I'm
cool
no
anymore.
fun. I am
I
no
know.
fun with this stuff.
I
Doesn't
think
believe
I
in
think you're very.
aliens,
I
doesn't believe in
basically-
Bigfoot.
What happened is I basically like looked into all this stuff and researched it and believed it and thought it was so cool. And I used to be into all this stuff. Like, I mean, like hours and hours and hours of watching videos on it and reading about it, thinking it was so cool. And then I just took like my minimum requirement that something is true. And I just was like, okay, that is way too low. I need to set that bar higher. And off fell all that shit. So I don't know what to tell you. I can't really help it.
Bigfoot?
What's up?
What disproved Bigfoot?
What disproved Bigfoot?
Yes, what disproved Bigfoot?
I mean, almost every single version of the Bigfoot thing has been like a hoax. Every single one of them, almost, you can go through and
Mhm.
like see how they faked it or whatever. My thing is this: if there is like a hominid species that lives in North America or lived in North America within our lifetime,
Mhm.
it would in some way have like it would absolutely have like more evidence than what like all of the Bigfoot evidence we have combined.
I was
Because
gonna say
It's an
interdimensional.
interdimensional.
Yeah.
It's an interdimensional being, Amalek.
okay, well now we're talking about things that I like definitely can't. I'm just not gonna go there. Like I don't know. I just don't think it's real.
We should go on a Bigfoot hunt sometime. It'll be fun.
Oh, they got Bigfoot in Tennessee. We'll have to go on a Bigfoot hunt. You
Yeah,
know they've got
that's what we're gonna
tours and
do.
shit. Oh, do
Maybe.
you know what I found out? That is
What?
just north of where we're going to be moving in Kentucky. They have a Hobbit town village.
Yo,
celebrating for
Kentucky
5
is
days.
haunted as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky is like really spooky, actually.
Well, I'm looking forward to all the. I can't even wait to start getting into the East Coast and stuff and Southern freaking spirituality. I cannot even wait. But they have a Hobbit village that runs for 5 days that you can go live as a Hobbit for 5 days.
Really?
With celebrations, and they don't use money. Everything is in trade. And I'm like, that sounds like so much fun. It's such a
It's like
commune.
a Ren fair, except you live as a hobbit.
Yeah, Yes, you do. Like camping as a hobbit for 5 days in costume. And like, I'm so down. I love this. I want to go be in the Shire.
All right. Well, on that note, it's 1 a.m.
There you go. Yeah. And Amalek, lighten up. It's okay, sweetie.
It's
Have
okay
a
to
little
like
fun.
aliens and Bigfoot and supernatural
Oh,
things.
I'm
Amalek.
gathering a bunch of like non-superstitious Aryan wizard cabal to fucking take over this fucking planet and get colonizing the fucking galaxy.
Well,
Okay,
you're not taking
Okay,
it over
well-
if you don't understand magic and energy. So
we
you're
just
and
doing
if
don't.
it
We don't
when you
need that.
do.
We don't need that.
You
We don't
do
need that. That's what we're
actually.
doing.
You do
You
makes it a lot
do.
easier. You
No,
do.
no, no, no.
Exactly. You're-
Understanding like the concept and like nodding and saying, okay, all right, and then okay, now we just need to like live in like as much of reality as we can to deal with
Oh,
reality. is my
So precious. So precious.
okay.
Until the reptilians come
We
out.
can do weird stuff after we win, but you can't win if you're.
You
if you're
can't
too
win
fo-
without
focused on
doing the weird stuff. The weird stuff is required to win, bro.
It's
Alright.
part of being a human being. It is part of our makeup. It is literally in our cells. Our cellular structure is keyed into energy.
You will always be
What
at a
I think is
disadvantage.
that I think that people like me have always been around, and we've just been fucking tricking people into thinking that this shit is real, like forever. Just like super cynical people have basically been just making the religions over and
Okay.
over. All the spirituality, all that stuff.
And
is
you're
just
not
like,
a super cynical person. Wait a
I'm
minute.
about to do
No,
a
I
massive
am.
psychoanalysis of you based on your
Oh, no.
astrological profile, and we're gonna see what's up.
do it.
I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna just send him some good vibes. Yum 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 yum.
I'm gonna dig into it. I'm using my Pluto in the first house, and I'm gonna get right in there. I'm gonna tell you the thing that's gonna trigger you the most based on your astrological profile, and you're gonna be like, oh shit.
Like,
Do
look,
not poke the bear. Leave him alone.
yo, we would be better off if we like ran a society through like astrology. Like you were like astrological determinism would be a better system than what we have right now. Okay,
Exactly.
Not wrong.
Exactly.
Not
I
wrong.
wouldn't. Okay, but I would like to just like wipe the slate clean of superstition and just fucking go at this thing.
It's not superstition.
No. I'm not even look. Like I don't know if like I actually think that we need to like ban religious like superstitions, right? Like
Well,
I know that that's
astrology is not a
hardcore.
religion, so
I know
eh.
it's not. I know it's not. I'm just saying like I think that the way we banned slavery as a planet, to the degree that we did, obviously
Mhm.
that's not perfect. There's still slaves today and all that stuff. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but the way we ban slavery as the planet, I think we need to do that to the Bible. We need to restrict
I
access to the
agree.
Bible
Yes.
and the Quran. I think that
Yes.
is basically so okay. So now, okay, so
But would that not be a similar feat as to destroying the ancient temples and statues of the past?
yes,
care.
fuck
It needs
them.
to be
Yes.
taught, but
care.
it needs to be explained in a way that.
Well, when I
makes-
say restrict access, like I don't think like experts and things like that should like they can still like have them and read them and study them or whatever. I don't think anybody should be able to like pick up a Bible, read from it, and tell somebody else that it's true. What's in there is true.
well,
Because
but then
like the
you
whole
haven't
thing in
learned
there is a
from
religious
history.
fraud.
No, because you haven't learned from history. Because then, as soon as you do that, you develop black market cult followings.
No, I
Yeah,
agree with
good,
Emily.
good. Stiff them
needs
into the
to
black.
stop
Yeah.
that.
If they
Yeah.
hey, listen.
And if they continue to practice it, you
Yeah,
put them in fucking jail until they get in
Yeah,
line. And
yeah,
if they
yeah.
still don't
I
want to,
think it's-
you send them to Africa.
I think
Okay.
Well, hold on, real quick. Just take that premise, right? So you understand the premise of the idea that I think that that's how you basically treat this problem, right?
Mhm.
So how would you gather people to do that? Right? Like, can you even think of a way? Like, how do you
Beer.
gather people that are like-minded, right? Basically, you have to gather people that hate Abrahamism and superstitious people, right? Like you basically have to find people that are extremely resentful against superstition, right?
I don't like
So-
cultivating hatred. It only leads to violence. That's a bad idea.
Well, so what I'm trying to do is make people more like that, A, and B, find people that are like that because there's tons and tons of them.
You will lose
And-
control so fast, buddy.
Oh, you think we're gonna lose control? Maybe.
You will lose control.
Listen, Jennifer, we've only got 2 years left here before the shit hits the fan. Let him
Sure.
try
I'm
it out.
doing it.
Okay?
Well, I'll
Dude,
tell you
I'm-
what, I'll be
Let
on
him
my.
raise his army of retards.
Have your army of retards. I am going to have my amazing commune in Tennessee where we're going to have karaoke and beer and canned food and all the kinds of things that we need. And rum, husband says yes. And so
Yeah.
you are welcome at our table. Please don't blow anything up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like a white anti-superstitious Muhammad sweeping across the nation. That's what we're doing. That's what we need.
Wow, that
need
is
to-
a visual.
We need to manifest a white Muhammad
You cannot
that
manifest
kills
locally
Abrahamism.
humanity.
That's what we should be doing. I would like to inspire a
Don't you
young,
use my language against me. I know what you're up to, buddy.
See, if
A
only
young
you understood
Muhammad-
energy and manifesting, and then you can
a
manifest
young,
whatever
a
the
young
fuck
white
you
man
want.
with some motion, if you know what I mean. A young white man with some motion. You know, maybe we could just like call him like Hitler too. I don't know, and let's
Oh
make it so
my
that he just kills Yahweh.
We have lost
idea.
the plot. It has happened.
Yeah,
We're
it's a
we're
good
in the
idea.
sauce now.
Global. You heard of global genocide, but have you heard of global banning the Bible?
All right.
Hitler wanted to kill all the non-Germans. Well, Amalek, he wanted to literally ban the entire Bible. Like, that's what we're doing.
All right.
We're
I'm going
inspiring
to
that.
bed on that note.
So
Think about it.
interesting. Where are the
Amalek
Quagmire?
Akbar, exactly.
Oh, my Lord,
Amalek
have you-
L.R. Oh, wow.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, we basically need to like inspire fanatics that hate the Bible.
Oh my
That's
God.
the only way to
I
make it
don't
happen.
inspire hatred. I told you that. Watch it, or you're gonna lose your spot at my table, and I'm gonna have a
I
lot
want to
of
be
food.
the Sith. I am the Sith Lord. We're wielding the darkness. I am Anakin, right, Karlyn?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's an Aries moon, Jennifer. Leave him alone, okay?
Oh, yes, but that's your emotional relation. Okay, well, I guess he's getting very emotional right now. You're not wrong. Okay. But and also that's that freaking Scorpio rising. That'll get you every time. Libras are
Yeah.
supposed to be a little more
See,
cool.
They
he's
say on that
safe
thing
'cause
that
he's
I
a
like,
fucking Libra, and then it all goes downhill
I
from there.
I know, right? You think, oh, we're safe. He's a Libra. No,
No, he's
no,
not. No.
no.
Doesn't it say
All
that thing
right.
that I'm like obsessed with justice? I could see how that.
Yeah.
Yep, that
Yep.
makes sense.
Fairness, justice, the weighing of the scales, all that. Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they also think they see the truth of everything.
And I
Once they
do.
feel like they found the truth, it's like, and now I have the truth, and all of you are wrong.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yep, I know. It's okay. It's okay. I'm very accepting and forgiving, and I think you're adorable. Again, a very fun show. This has been a
Me too. I'm,
blast.
I'm very forgiving, just like Jesus. I forgive my enemies.
I drink the cup of Amalek's blood.
Yeah.
Absolved of all sins. all right. Let's tone it down. We need to go.
All right. I gotta go to bed.
Good night. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Amalek. We'll see you later. Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Jennifer. Appreciate you guys.